Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 141 of the Board Game BBQ podcast. And this is a very special episode. Not only is it an all-in episode, it's also a little bit of a who are we? Finding out all the little bits of information about us nine who are your podcast hosts. We're going to talk about a lot of things, but we're all here, so if we can just get everyone to say a quick hello.
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 And what we're going to do to start off with is actually just, I should preface all of this by saying that this isn't a regular show. There will be no sizzles, no oaths, and no bracket battle. This is essentially us answering questions that have been posed by the other podcast hosts and also by some of the patrons as well. But to start it off, the question that was we're going to start with was put forward by one of the hosts, and it was for me to explain why I wanted to start this pod. And what I sort of envisaged it would be. So the first thing I've spoken about this a little bit. I used to live in a very small country town, and I was kind of like the only board gamer in the town. So I actually initially started this just to meet other people in the hobby and talk about games, because in case you can't tell by now, I don't mind talking about board games. And I've always said, and the rest of it just kind of snowballed from there. But in the back of my mind, I always had this idea that, this could be something great. And early on in the podcast, I actually sent all nine of us a little bit of a short-term, long-term, and crazy goals. I don't know if you guys remember that, but we've achieved all the short-term goals. We've achieved most of the long-term goals, and we've actually started achieving some of the crazy, ridiculous goals. So I can't sit there and say I never expected this, because on some level, what this has turned into has been kind of like my dream from the start. So I personally am just super proud of the fact that this has become a thing. And the fact, I think we've all talked about it before, that the nine of us actually all get along, which is bizarre, and have done for a year and a half now. So me personally, the idea of the pod was just to be able to meet other people and find similarly minded people, which is exactly what has happened, which is amazing. So from there, then it goes away from me, because I put it out there and I said, hey, does anyone want to join a podcast? And then all of you people replied. So why did you reply? What drew you guys to this idea? Now, the easiest way to do this for visual effect, I think, is just to sort of work along the grid. So I'll start with Mitch.
Me. So, look, it was something that I'd always sort of wanted to do. I was doing my mat thing as a way to just do something more in the hobby. So I think the mat thing and this sort of came from the same desire to just participate more, to give something back and to be more involved in the community. So when I saw that, I'd sort of been tossing up trying to do sort of my own sort of podcast, and what would I say, and who would listen to one guy talking on a podcast sort of thing. So when the opportunity shot out there, I was just like, let's have a crack, let's see what happens. And to be honest, I was like, 9 strangers trying to make this work. This won't last. I don't think this can't work. This is not going to last. But look, it's been fantastic. Best thing that's ever happened in the last 18 months.
For sure. Mike, what about you?
I was still pretty new to the hobby. But I'm a big fan of Kevin Smith, and used to listen to a lot of Kevin Smith podcasts. And something he's encouraged his listeners a lot is, like, if you have a passion, if you're passionate about something, pick up a mic, get someone else that enjoys it too, and just talk about it. And someone's going to want to listen. And I remember seeing that episode, and I'm like, I've always wanted to be on seeing your post and thinking, I've always wanted to be on a podcast, but I'm new to the hobby. It's a bit scary. And I scrolled past. And then I kept thinking about it. I'm like, it's an opportunity just to give it a go. Like, if I record 1 or 2 episodes, I can say I did a podcast. So I remember going back and finding your post and sending you a comment saying, hey, can I still jump in? And I could. And I'm really grateful for that. So it was just a chance to explore this hobby with other people and be able to talk about something that all my friends were getting sick of me talking about, because it's not their hobby. So I needed to find some people and find a community, which is what I found here.
That's awesome. Next on the snake is Conor. I mean snake because I'm going across the 9 boxes like in a snake format, in case that doesn't make any sense.
I thought you said steak for a second. I was like, very thematic. Yeah,
addicts, not experts.
Yeah, that's right.
So Conor.
I'm probably a combination of both Mitch and Mike, in that I saw your post on whatever Facebook page it was, and kind of was similar to Mike. I was like, oh, this actually sounds really interesting. But I thought, nah, I wouldn't be any good at it or whatever. And I just sort of let it go. And then it was marinating for a bit. And I thought, no, you know what? What's the worst thing I can do? So I reached out to you, and obviously the rest is history. But I guess I was also in the middle of a lockdown last year, and kind of looking for things to do and ways to spend my time. So that's where this came up from. And I always remember I'd listen to other board game podcasts that I still do today, and I would get frustrated in a way because I would just want to be part of the conversation. And I thought, you know what, this is perfect. I can be part of the conversation now. I can just make sure that I can get my when all those discussion topics come out, I can have my part now. And so that's how I joined.
Okay, so next up is Sarah, who was the last person to join the podcast crew. And I'll let you tell that story, Sarah. Sorry.
Yeah, I came along really late. How much of that do you want me to tell? I'll just say that I guess someone who I was friends with found the post and actually sort of tagged me and said, hey, you should do something like that. I was writing reviews on my site, Tabletop Source, and I always had this thought in my mind that it'd be cool to do videos. But going from written reviews to videos is whoa, massive jump. And I never thought of podcasting. I don't know why, but then all of a sudden I was like, hey, this sounds fun. So yeah, I guess really initially it was more, this would be fun. I didn't think it would become a serious thing. And here we are.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Adrian? How did you come across the podcast?
Well, I didn't have Facebook, and I got Facebook, I think a week prior to your post. And I can't remember if I joined a group and saw the post or if MJ saw the post and told me about it. And I, like Mike, I've been listening to Kevin Smith's podcast for 12 years. I still listen to them now every week religiously. I listen to the last podcast on the left. I'm a Patreon, and love podcasts. I can't get enough of them. I will find random podcasts about science and history and just listen to them in the car. And I was like, yeah, I'll give it a go. Why not? I like podcasts, and I'm just starting into the board game. So it'll be an interesting journey. And we all met up, and we just hit off, had a great time. And I know that there was lots of aspiration to do big things at the start. And even that was wow, that's a few years away. But stuff's just gone really fast, and strength to strength. And that's what happened. I just signed up.
Yeah, there was a funny story about Rogue One, because we all kind of who is this guy? We didn't even know his name was Adrian for 4 weeks.
Yeah, his
He started messaging
photo
me
was
straight
not
away.
his face.
He started messaging me straight away, hey bro, how you doing, man? What's going on? I keep trying to chat to him, who is this guy? He just keeps going.
He looks like one of those scammer profiles on Facebook.
So fake.
I think I have Walt Flanagan, who's one of my favorite podcasters and comic artists, as my profile picture. As my cover. Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Is it the guy from Whose Line?
No.
That's what it looked like. I always thought it was the guy from Whose Line.
I know who you mean.
I have expected my emails to be filled with excuse me, sir, we met. Can you please wire me $200 so I can...
Maybe he's the Nigerian prince.
Yeah.
Did you also have a fake birthday and got all these birthday
messages?
Yes.
He did.
No. When I signed up to Facebook, I was just whatever, click, because it was doing the arrow down thing where you get to pick. So I was first, and then whatever came up that.
Sure. You just couldn't remember.
And then all of a sudden, I was getting loads of birthday messages in September, and I was like, "Ooh, what happened there? Something's gone wrong."
All right, we'll move on. We'll go to Dan next.
Much like Mitch, I've been thinking about sort of doing something, podcast or content or something. I really just, to be honest, didn't have the balls to pull the trigger and do it myself. But I was getting into board games, and the collection was growing. And I remember being at the last PAX in Melbourne, and I was walking around talking to some of the designers and asking them questions. And one guy goes, he's looking for my accreditation. He goes, are you media or something? And I'm like, no, I'm just a dude who's interested in how all this works. And just talking to designers, and I saw this as a great opportunity to get a bit more involved in the community in some way. And I'm loving it. It's one of the best decisions I ever made.
Then that guy went to security and was like, "Hey, mate, that's
He's asking some really weird questions."
What Dan hadn't mentioned is he'd been at the bar for like the previous 3 hours.
Next up is the first person to respond, and that was Def.
Oh, really? I don't remember that. Well, there you go. Yeah, I was looking for a new community to kickstart. I've done that in the past in other areas, and we had started with board games a few months ago before that, and I saw Steve's message and I thought, well, you know, how wrong can this go? This person's in the middle of nowhere. If he's a serial killer, there's no harm done. He can't get to me. So I kind of reached out. It was a bit spontaneous, to be honest. But yeah.
Awesome. And lucky last is Jules.
Yeah, so it'd been mentioned before that, you know, this post came through lockdown period last year, and I didn't have anyone to play games with. I started to meet people in the community in Canberra a little bit, but obviously lockdown prevented all that. And saw the post, I thought, why the heck not? Like, I've got nothing to lose, and I desperately want to talk about board games. And I'm like Mitch, I'm like, how the heck is this going to work? Like, all these people, like, there's no way. But it's just been amazing. Like, yeah, by far the best thing that's happened in the past 18 months. It's just been a whirlwind. It's been awesome.
Yeah, I think that's that sentiment about the last 18 months. It's 2020 was not a good year on anyone's calendar, but I look back at it fondly because of this podcast, and not just from COVID. I had some other stuff that happened in that year that didn't make it great, but it did. I don't care. Like, it was such a great year because this all started, and you know, even 2021 is no different. So it's just, it's been amazing. One of the other things we want to talk about is like what we've become, what we're about. And I think that's probably the thing that, to me anyway, I'm just so happy to and proud of all of us for the fact that we've created this community, because that never really wasn't the intention from the outset, I don't think.
I don't even think that was on your list of wish list things.
Well, it was. There was things that involved people, but not like, let's create a Facebook community that you know does the things that the other Facebook communities in Australia don't do, that annoy us. And we've done that. And I still think I still follow the other Australian Facebook communities, but I feel like ours has the most input from not just us, but also from the general public, and that's just awesome to see that that's still happening. And you know, I think it goes back to how all 9 of us are. Like, we're those sort of people, like Mike talked about in his "Are You Okay" video the other day. Like, we're those people who will offer a seat to a game, and you know, we'll want people. We want more people playing this hobby. We're not about the negativity. We don't talk about that. You know, I love that about what we've become, and obviously, I'm assuming that's why the community has grown, because other people are looking for that too, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's one of our proudest achievements, I think we can say, is that we've just got this amazing community.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, next question before we get into the questions. We'll do a quick round about and just what your favorite thing about being part of the podcast is today. Let's go in reverse order this time to keep it interesting.
Thank God.
Jules.
It's going to take you that long to come up with something you like.
He
More
can come
people
up
to
with something
beat
he
games,
hates
yeah.
very fast, though.
More people could have beaten games. I don't know.
Such a Jules answer.
No, honestly, I think I don't know. It's just having new friends. Like, honestly, it's just been amazing to connect with people through board games, but actually develop friendships with other people. I certainly wasn't heading in intending for that to happen, but it's just happened naturally. We've met the most amazing people through this, and I hope I can keep those connections for a lifetime, honestly.
That's only until you play a game with them, Jules.
Yeah. And the knives
You
come
crush them.
What about you, Def?
Yeah, I think the community, and you know, I find myself every morning I wake up and I've got this routine, before having breakfast or whatever, and I sit on the couch and scroll through the news and just hop onto the community and see what's happened in the previous few hours. It's just become part of my life now, and I've connected some usernames with faces now and met some people in person, and it's just a community of friends now is the closest thing I can call it.
Nice. Dan, you're up.
Yeah, I'm the same. It's the people. It's the 8 people I'm looking at right now, but also the wider community. Mike and I had the pleasure of, I say, hosting the Melbourne board game game day earlier in the year, but it wasn't just us, because we had so many volunteers from our actual community helping us, and people were I think people were so just relieved to be able to have somewhere that they could go and play and meet people, and a safe space. And I'm just really proud of the fact that we were able to provide that. And the amount of people that came up and said, "Oh, thanks for doing this," and then we were just like, "Thanks for coming. What are you kidding me? This is amazing. We wouldn't have been able to do it without all of you guys." So yeah, it's just incredible.
What about you, Adrian?
Yeah, the game days are great. I love meeting people and playing games and teaching games and seeing our volunteers teaching games and everyone helping each other, and I really like that. I also like the work as well. Like, it's weird. I like to keep myself busy, so I like helping and doing stuff. And it's this, like, we have quite a tight schedule because we do 2 podcasts a week. I don't think anyone else is that insane. So like, it's a lot, you know what I mean? It really is a lot, and a lot goes on behind the scenes, like with scheduling, booking guests, making sure the lines up, time zone changes, like rescheduling them. It's a lot, and I actually like that bit. It's strange, but I enjoy it. So don't like playing games though.
What about you, Sarah?
So for me, I run game groups where you're running events and you're trying to drum up like this excitement and people to come and stuff. And it can be really hard, when people don't turn up and things like that. And you can sometimes feel like you're putting in and maybe not, no one is that enthused or as enthused as you are. And I feel like everyone I've met through the board game barbecue, you guys included, are so willing to help out, support, like in any way. Like, I'm not just talking about be there to teach a game. I'm talking about everything. Like, we've just started this, where we're trying to get like fit and healthy together. Like, seriously, everything. I feel like if I needed some help, that there's just this wealth of people that are willing to help, and I think that's really lovely. And now I'm getting emotional, and
That's
I'm
awesome.
not gonna cry.
Absolutely. Conor?
Oh, I don't know how much more I can say, really, because I think
it's
everyone's hit the nail on the
hard.
head. It is getting hard. It's a bit like, in class, like, no, you got to say something different from the last person.
It does feel a bit weird just introducing people.
No, I think, like, just to echo what everyone else has said, and, I think I'm amongst lots of people who probably haven't had the easiest 12 months with a couple of things going on and things like that. And the amount of support that have come from the 8 of you and the wider community has been fantastic. Putting faces to names at the board game day I was able to get to for back in Brisbane. That was one of the best feelings of my life. So it is you guys, the people that are listening to us now in Discord, and our listeners on that aren't part of the Discord community. I can only encourage you to get on board, because it's a tremendous group of people that we have here. And and if I can be perfectly honest, it's not because of us. Like, I don't think the community itself is self-sustaining and just really supportive of each other. So, I couldn't think of a better place to hang out. I wish it was a real place and not a virtual place. That's all I wish.
It's a fire we can't put out now.
Yeah.
It's too big.
What about you, Mike?
Look, I'm just very, very thankful to have a new arch nemesis. Hate Mitch. Just someone new to hang crap on. No, look, the friendships are amazing. The being so new in it when I got started, having people open my eyes to how much more I can really enjoy this hobby and that feeling of community, and having you people help me gain more tastes, and instead of just buying everything I see on Facebook, I buy only somewhat I see on Facebook now, and I'm chasing bigger and more expensive games now, and dipping my toes in things I didn't think I would have done, and running game day. It's all amazing, it's all new, and it's all exciting, and I wouldn't want to do it with anyone else.
Yeah, I just wanted to go to a game day when I lived out in Cloncurry. Like I never, and the only ones I've been to, except for one just recently, are the ones that we've run. So never expected that. What about you, Mitch?
Well, obviously everyone's saying it's the people in the community, but for me, it's this face mask.
Best face mask ever. That one.
I'd trade all of you in a second. I could have another one.
Available at boardgamebarbecue.com.
Yeah. It's so small that it just fits my 7-year-old.
Oh no, it fits me really well.
The funny thing is, I did have it on one day, and my kids called me, "What's that character from Harry Potter? Dobby with the ears? The thing pulls my ears so far out, and the bald head." Yeah. No, obviously, the answer is the community and you guys. Then the extension of that, just being able to, I'm going to just be a broken record and say what everybody else has said. We've all been through our own times. We've all had our ups and downs in the last 12 to 18 months. And to have that support there, I don't know what my life would look like tomorrow if you guys went around. Moving on.
For me, I think everything, obviously, what everyone has said is great. I just go back to not just the retreat. The retreat, for those who don't know, is when the 9 of us all got together, and that was amazing. But it wasn't just the 9 of us; it was a lot of our families as well. And my kids have relationships with some of you guys. Like Def, since then, has moved to near where I live, and every time he comes over, Raphael runs up and wants a high five and wants to tell him about basketball and all that sort of stuff. And my daughter wanted us to buy a different couch than we're going to buy because on the off chance that Mike and Renata might come up and stay with us one time. Like these are like relationships that my family have built from this, which is just a total non-consideration. That they're not board gamers. They were just there, and you guys. I was mentioned at the retreat. Like, I would be happy with my kids with you guys any day of the week, like because you're just awesome people. And so that would, to me, that's kind of like a huge standout to know that it's not just about board games; it's about family and community and all that stuff as well. And I think I need to stop because I think Sarah's about to lose.
Got my tissues over here if I need them.
People, place your bets. Who's first to drop a tear, Adrian or Sarah? Let's go.
Lucky I've got this super absorbent hyper viper game mat.
Done some testing.
Yeah, I've plenty of testing. I've done plenty of testing.
All right, so that'll end up all the board game side of things. So these questions that we're going to ask are actually about things outside of board games. So we wanted to get you to know us, not just for what you know us for over the last 18 months. This was Def's idea, I believe, and then I feel like Sarah really championed it and got behind the wheel and made it all happen. So did either of you guys want to discuss it any more before we get into it and how the format's going to work?
Yeah, I can talk about the format. So we thought that we basically have a question each for every podcaster. And then we took 2 questions from the Patreon members as well. So we're going to kind of put everyone in the hot seat and ask these 10 questions. And yeah, we've got some really different ones. So hopefully you enjoy it.
So one thing I don't know is the order. Who's going first?
It's in the run sheet.
Yeah,
on the left.
Look, I just did it randomly. But,
oh, that's cool.
We can go through that way and then do it grid, via the grid, asking the questions if you want to.
So does that mean that Jules is up first?
Yeah.
Jules is the first on the hot seat.
Nice.
Let's go.
All right. So do we want to just
get on the grill?
Yeah, this is the grill. That's right. Yeah, I was supposed to mention that. Hey, good. Addicts, not experts.
Before we start too, we do want to thank our sponsors for the.
Yeah, that's actually something I wrote down and forgot because we all got emotional. But that we wanted to shout out not just to our patrons who are amazing and most of the people who are watching this right now, but we're very thankful for the patrons. Obviously, that's amazing. But I want to specifically do a shout out to Dean from Advent Games who sponsored us from like month 2, maybe. I think we had at that time we were like high-fiving each other because we got to 100 views. You know, like, and for in all honesty, in a market where board game shops don't make a lot of money, to have a board game company come and say, "Hey, I'll give you guys money to support your show," was pretty huge. And then later on, we formed a relationship with 2D6 Games, and that was, I felt, Adrian and I actually sat down with Dave and Dan before that was agreed upon, and it felt weird because they'd become mates, they'd become friends that we'd played board games with, and it was kind of weird to ask them for money and have that conversation, but they were very much keen to help out in whichever way they can, and they still are today. They do so much for us in the local Brisbane area, which is excellent. And then finally, Game Toppers. We had a great chat with Berkey from Game Toppers, who was keen. Obviously, he's got a product to sell, and as does anyone who wants to sponsor. But he gave us a Game Topper, and for anyone who's had a look at that Kickstarter, that's not a cheap thing. That's like nearly $2,000 worth of gear that we've got just given to us to say, hey, show it off at your game days, talk about us on the podcast every now and again. And so we're super appreciative for the three, I guess, corporate sponsors that we have, but the 51 patrons more so. That's people giving their money for no give back. That's just saying, here's some money because we love what you do. And we set a goal of getting X amount of patrons, and we kind of said, wouldn't it be cool if we got 50? If we did that, we should give away a board game. So we now have 51. So more information to come about the giveaway very, very soon. But yeah, massive thanks to everyone who has contributed, not just with money, but in game days, like Adrian mentioned, with all the volunteers, specifically those who helped out in Melbourne, because that was mental. I think we found out on the Tuesday that I couldn't get down, and Dan was questionable because he was ill.
Yeah. And
at one point it was just going to be Mike. And in the end, I think we had 6 volunteers or 5 volunteers, and then we had some, and Stu was like, oh, hang on, I missed the volunteer memo. Can I help too? And that's what it is. It's just everyone just jumping in and helping. So it's, thank you to everyone who's supported us in any way, shape or form. And Jules.
So if we're going in snake order, does that mean me first as far as Jules?
It does.
All right. So Jules, the question I have for you is, what is the biggest risk you've ever taken in your life, and how did it turn out?
Oh,
Now, Wild just thinks it's important to note that none of us have seen these questions prior to being asked.
I think Jules is frozen.
And I think Jules is so shocked by that.
He's back. He's back.
He's back.
That's a really
When
tough
does
question.
Mitch get serious?
I don't know. I feel like moving to Canberra, I'd have to say. And that might not seem risky to people, but I was born and bred in Melbourne. All my family's there. All my in-laws are there. I was newly married at the time, and we were moving to a city where we knew no one at all. It was, it felt hard at the time to completely disconnect from everything I knew and well-established, communities I had in Melbourne. So I think it's worked out great. And part of that is to thank the community I'm in now with the Board Game Barbecue, because I've met some people in Canberra, but I think a lot of what I'd consider close friends are through this. So yeah, I'd say moving to Canberra was probably the biggest step, and totally disconnecting from everything I'd established before.
And how would you say it's turned out so far?
I'd say it's great. Yeah, we've been here over 3 years, and we've been really enjoying it. And I'm grateful that I did, because there's things we've experienced here that we wouldn't have otherwise.
Yeah, cool.
You almost convinced me that Canberra was good then, Jules. That was good.
Internet's a bit crap, though.
Yeah.
So that means next? No, it's actually me based on the snake one. So yeah, because I was going last before because I was the hosting, but I'm in that row. So
did I push in? Did I? Sorry.
No. You're right. It's you, then me, then Mike on my screen. So
right,
3 most handsome guys at the top. Jules, my question was actually about your travel. So you appears to you've done a fair bit, and I know you've mentioned a lot about the Western US before, but I'm interested to know where the best place you've traveled to is and why.
Oh, best place I've traveled to in terms of things to do and culture wise, I really enjoyed being in San Francisco. I spent a bit of time there, and the reason is my mum's from there, so she always had the dream that when she had a family, she'd take us there and show her childhood. So yes, I'm half American in theory.
Which half? All right, it's a bad joke.
Down the middle. So yeah, San Francisco is an amazing place. I enjoyed all my memories there, going to Lombard Street and all the other sightseeing things did around there. And in other ways, I spent a bit more time there a few years later and spending time in Oakland, which was a pretty rough city. And it opened my eyes a bit and it was amazing in different ways. So I'd probably say that's my favorite place that I've gone to.
Nice. I thought you were going to say Canberra, but that's cool. Yeah, Mark, you're up.
My question was sort of like a two-parter.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think your competitiveness came from growing up like playing games with your siblings? And also, where else in life are you as ruthless as you are in board games?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, so I'm the oldest of 4 siblings. So I don't know. I think it's a bit of an older sibling thing that you try to be the dominant one and control everyone else. So there's probably a bit of biology stuff going in there. But yeah, definitely board games. Yeah, I probably my siblings probably have not great memories of me smashing them in Risk or whatever. But I was probably, to be fair, I was probably too young to understand being a good sport at that point in time. But I played a lot of tennis, a lot of basketball growing up. So I went hard in sport when I was younger and still love to play from time to time. So I was very competitive on the field as well, whatever sport I was participating in. I did a lot in school. I even did netball, rounders, cricket, AFL. I did discus, so I was quite good at discus. I did a lot of athletics. So yeah, just that sporting competitive nature, I think, has fueled, been in my blood for my whole life, really.
Cool.
All right, we go to Conor.
All right. So, Jules, you live in Canberra, but you're from the Melbourne.
Mm-hmm.
Which city is better?
Oh man, for different, they're better in different ways.
I don't think Canberra counts as a city, does it?
It's a territory. It's a territory.
To that point yet?
Well,
only 6 people live there.
Okay, my heart says Melbourne is better. Partly because of some of the food and the culture there, and that's what I love. I grew up in Carlton in my childhood, and so being in the city, going to the Queen Victoria Market, experiencing all that culture and different food from all around the world there is a special part of me. So I'd probably say Melbourne, but I love the great outdoors and camping, and Canberra is amazing for that. So many cool places within half an hour of my place. So yeah, that's my answer.
Cool.
So my question for you, Jules, is how did you get into, what inspired you to get into environmental science? Because it doesn't seem like an evil overlord occupation. Is it just a cover?
He's turning the plants against everyone.
Yeah,
been sprung. No, it comes from my love for the great outdoors. I love camping, always have. I find nature fascinating. I've always done well at science in school and geography and all that sort of stuff. And I think that I have a little bit of a passion for us, needing to look after the planet that we live on. I primarily work in waste industry, and that is heavily connected with, the planet and the environment. So I don't know. I feel like I've just had a natural affinity. I've always just loved the outdoors and found it fascinating, ecosystems and everything that goes on. So yeah, I feel like I've just always enjoyed it and found it interesting.
I have a secondary question to that. What is your spirit animal?
I don't know. My gut instinct was to say an eagle.
A werewolf.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I would have said
A
capybara.
vulture.
I think it was a badger.
Well, yours is a wombat, Mitch. So
I could answer with my star sign and say Leo.
yeah.
Go a lion.
Cool.
Cool. It's me next, right, Steve?
Yeah.
Sweet. Jules, man, what is the thing that's given you your biggest adrenaline rush out of board games? Because I know that you'd be like, when I won against somebody. That doesn't count. Not counting that. Done any skydiving or anything crazy?
Rush. No, I've never done skydiving. This might seem like a weird one, but the memory that comes to mind for me is doing whitewater rafting in the Grand Canyon.
Nice.
That's not a weird one.
That's
That's
not
very
weird. That's
wild.
terrifying.
Yeah. It was like we were there in April, and so it's coming out of winter, but it still gets cold. But there was a big snowstorm that came through the night before, and it was snowing at the top of the canyon, but turned to rain at the bottom. And it was so cold. We were not prepared for that. So I remember it. I have so many memories. It's the coldest I've ever been in my life. And we were on the river for like 6 hours. But it was amazing going through the canyon. So just invigorating and amazing that I really, really love that memory.
Yeah, cool.
That sounds awesome.
Nice. I think I'm next. I just realized my question was a little bit probably too close to Sarah, so I'm going to mix it up a little bit. And given that you work in a field that you're quite passionate about, but what would your ultimate job be, do you think?
I've been thinking about this a lot. I still, if I was still working in the environment industry, this might sound boring to people, but I'd really like to work in water management. I feel like water is I don't know, it's just a thing I'm very interested in, and I think is pretty important. If it was outside of what I'm doing now, I think I'd love to go into photography and graphic design. I do that, on the side, and really enjoy doing photos. Obviously, you guys have seen stuff I've done through the podcast, but yeah, either of those two.
Awesome.
And Def, the final question for Jules before we get to the patron ones.
The final question is also probably a fitting one then, because what I've written down is, Jules, you being the youngest in our group, what are some of your dreams or things that you sort of really want to do in the future of the next few years? Tangible things. Don't tell me walk on Mars.
Oh man, I guess I don't really know. Yeah, in the next few years, I guess. I mean, career-wise, I have goals and things like that, but I suppose I've been thinking and reflecting more lately on just that, like what I want to achieve. I don't have a family yet. That's something I'd like to do at some point. But yeah, beyond that, I don't really know what else to answer with. I feel like I'm still discovering myself and knowing what I do and don't enjoy. So yeah, just taking it as it comes.
Yeah, it was meant to make you think so.
Sarah, did you want to do the Patreon questions?
I can. I have them open. Sure. Okay. So we had. This is sort of tying into your move. You've sort of answered it already, but yeah, it was how have you found the transition in moving from one major city to another? So I'll just add on that, like, what was, is there any tips or things that you felt, let you settle in easier when you moved there?
It was just, I mean, naturally I'm an extroverted person, so it was easy for me to go out and do activities and meet people that way. But just throwing yourself out there and meeting people, and board games was an easy one. So I went to local board game groups and participating in sport as well, doing tennis and basketball with local community groups as well. So that was a big help, diving into my hobbies and meeting people that way.
How did you find the groups?
So with tennis, it was just looking up the nearest club near me. Basketball, it was just finding, I think it was just, there's a big Canberra community page. So just talking to people on there. So yeah.
And the other question was, what is the most evil thing you've ever done?
The most evil thing. I don't even know.
And it can't be in a board game. It has to be something else.
I feel like that's just where I let out all my evil energy. I don't do anything bad in real life.
That's what a bad
So
person would
it's
say.
evil Jules at the table and angel Jules in life.
Yeah, I'm now
I would say
imagining him
so.
like Cinderella with like
Yeah.
birds flying down and landing on his shoulder. And
Swatted a fly one day. That was it.
That 6-year-old girl never found her kitten still, Jules.
No, honestly, I can't really think of anything.
I start calling you Ned Flanders.
Ugly doggly.
Are you left-handed, Jules? I reckon you are, actually.
I'm not.
Hey,
Wow.
Hey, whoa.
Oh,
Let me get
Ned, Ned Flanders
Oh,
left-handed.
okay.
Yeah,
All
calm
right.
down.
Sorry.
Calm down. There's plenty of things you can get mad at me
Jeez.
about.
Adrian,
You know,
I just got triggered real quick.
Yeah, I know.
yeah.
10%ers, man. We gotta
Someone
stick
needs
together.
to change one of their Steve questions to, is he comfortable being left-handed?
How many people have you killed with your left hand?
All right. Well, that is Jules off the hot seat. And Conor will take his nicely kept warm space and be grilled. Let's go again.
Back to me.
Yeah.
I like being first because I don't have to think about anything. All right, Conor, my question for you, sir, is if you could have dinner with a celebrity or famous person who's no longer alive, who would it be and why?
Oh, I reckon if I could pick one person, it would be Tolkien. Tolkien, because I just think what he's provided me in terms of like a world I can escape to with Middle Earth and, everything else that's come from it. I'd imagine that I would be the only person to sit down and have dinner with him, and I could explain to him like what he's created in the world that we live in today. So, that's my pick for sure. I think and plus, maybe he could teach me how to talk Elvish. Like maybe, I don't know. That would be pretty cool.
Cool.
My question for you, Conor, is you've talked about being proud of your Indigenous heritage. I was wondering if you could tell us about that heritage.
Yeah, certainly. So a little bit of a long story. So it comes from my mum's side. So mum's Indigenous, where of the Yamaji people from WA. And mum only found that out sort of later in life. Her father had a full-blooded Indigenous woman as a mother and a white father, and he was dropped on an orphanage doorstep by his mother when he was quite young. Probably a baby, because she couldn't get any work. So, we're quite proud of our Indigenous heritage. We keep in contact with our Yamaji group back in WA, something that doesn't necessarily have a great story to begin with, but we try and sort of spin it positively and things like that to be able to, educate others when we can.
That's awesome.
This is awesome.
Good question, Steve.
Yeah, that's a good one. My question for you, Condog. I talked to your Facebook to try to see if I get some inspiration. I was going through your photos. I'm like, oh, Conor really looks like one of the boys, And I'm like, Conor's a teacher now. I want to know, Conor, were you a model student yourself? If you were your own
There's
student,
no way.
how would that have gone?
No way. He was a terror.
No, I wouldn't say I was a terror, but I definitely wasn't a model student. I'm definitely part of the do as I say, not as I do type teacher stereotype. No, I was probably interested in a lot of other things during school that, in the end probably didn't end up being that important, things like footy and, basketball, thinking I was going to be a professional at one of those and not really understanding how hard it would be. And, No, so I definitely wasn't a model student, but I'm open with my students to explain. I was once in your shoes, and they don't actually believe I had friends in high school. I was just as big of a loser as I am now. So,
I like it.
So obviously we'll skip Conor. So that means Sarah's up next.
Okay. So my question was, because I know you love video games and I love video games too, and we have some good chats about it, but I wanted to know, what were your top 3 most played, like hours sunk, top 3 games, and what was so addictive about them?
Yep. Geez, it's probably that's a good one. I think my number one most played would be Super Smash Brothers Melee, because I just played that so often with my brothers. It was just flat out every sort of Saturday, Sunday, we would just play it, the 3 of us, and we learn all the wild techniques, and it just became a competition to be able to beat each other. And they sort of went on and they competed in different competitions with the different Smash iterations. So yeah, like that, we just love it. It's part of who we are as a family and stuff like that.
Which fighter were you?
Me, I loved Donkey Kong. He was my go-to, and Donkey Kong. And in the later ones, I really liked Ike. Ike is from Fire Emblem. The other one, this one you'll probably laugh because it sort of sums me up, is Madden 2007 on the Wii. And the reason why is so this is back in 2007. I still have a ongoing franchise that I can go back and play. That's in it's probably into 2000, the year 2100. That's how long I've been playing this franchise for. But as people are like, oh my God, sports, rah, rah. But it's funny because it's almost like playing an RPG, because you invest in these characters and you want to see them progress through the seasons. And you're like, all right, I really want him to become a superstar of the league. So you just focus on getting him the ball, getting them the ball. So yeah, that's one of that's sort of the more bizarre of the 3. And
sounds like the most normal to me.
Yeah, but you go, honestly, there would be hundreds of hours that I've clocked in that game, and it's just strange that I was so weirdly addicted to it. And then the final one, you'd probably
Leisure Suit Larry.
Yeah, and we all know why that's addictive. Let's face it, I had to find all the secrets.
Sorry, mate.
No, fair enough. I'll cop that. Probably, I would say, probably one of the Monster Hunter games, I think, would be one of those. I would have close to 1,000 hours on one of those, just because I love the grind, going back and making the armors and the new weapons, and especially now with the iterations where they release more content. I'm just a sucker for that series. I'll go and pick it up straight away, download it, especially now you can play it on the go. So I'd probably say Monster Hunter 3U. So that was sort of a while ago when that came out. But they would be my 3 most addictive games that I would have put the most amount of hours into.
I thought Monster Hunter might be on there.
Yeah, it is. Yep.
Cool.
I like that question. That was fun.
Conor, my question for you is, why do you think we dream?
Oh my God.
Wow.
Do you want my scientific answer, or
I don't know. Yeah, whatever you think.
I think
my second question, I got a follow-up question.
Okay, right. So, why do I think? I mean, I mostly dream so I can see Mr. Cabbage Patch Head I guess our brains have got to do something when we're asleep. Surely, we're complex organisms. It's the brain's the most powerful computer that's ever existed. So
what do you mean? Mine doesn't do anything while I'm awake.
And my follow-up question is, how many pillows do you sleep with?
One. I sleep with one pillow, and you should know that from when I stuck into your bed up at the Brisbane game.
I know. Well, that's why I was checking.
Why are we asking those questions?
It was. it was
It's-
paternal.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, one pillow. I'm a one pillow because it hurts my neck if you have too many pillows. I reckon.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You're a big
That's
dude,
just
like
me.
big shoulders. I thought maybe 2 pillows.
Yeah, but my head's not that big.
Oh, my question's boring now.
I please don't ask me an existential question.
Oh,
like
no.
that.
I was going to ask you, were there any teachers at school growing up that inspired you to become a teacher yourself? And also, what do you think it was about yourself that took you in the direction of mathematics?
That's an awesome question, actually. I think any particular teacher. I think I really admired a lot of my VCE teachers, especially now. So VCE is like HSC. For those of you who don't or haven't done schooling in Victoria, my maths teacher, Ms. Sultana, she was fantastic. My biology teacher, Miss Belinda Vandergert, like they were awesome. And I just loved how they could transfer, so much information in a way that the students could break it down. That's really what I loved. And they, I guess, as I went on my journey to become a teacher, they inspired me because I thought, if I could be like to one kid what they were to me, I would have done a good job. So that's sort of where I was going with that. But in terms of mathematics, I never really saw myself as, overly good at maths. I think just with my science degree and things like that, I do like some processes and like to follow an order. So that's probably what led me more to being a maths teacher. And to be perfectly honest, it's weirdly like one of the easiest subjects to teach because it hasn't changed in thousands and thousands of years.
That's true.
Like literature changes every 10 years or every 50 years. Maths is maths. Like Pythagoras was invented before we had
Was he
wheels.
invented? Was he? Did they invent him? I thought he was a guy that actually had some theorems.
Well, the Pythagoras theorem was invented. Thank you, Mitchell.
I thought it was Def's cousin.
my brother's a math teacher, and he always says it like because you never have to mark essays. You don't have to read. You just have to go,
100%. And
that's the answer. Move on.
And you can't argue with maths. Like I think if you argue with maths, you go to the padded room out the back and sort of wear a straight jacket. I think it's where we have to go.
You said Mrs. Sultana. Was she related to Mr. Cabbagehead?
That's a Maltese name, my friend.
It is Maltese.
Cool.
She was honestly one of the, funny name aside, and she totally embraced her sort of funny name. She was one of the best teachers because she was one of those ones where when you were younger, she was like mean as like super mean. And then as you got older, you're like, actually, no, you're like pretty badass. Like you are such a cool teacher. Yeah.
I was just thinking it was Tash Sultan. I'm like, how cool is that again? He must have been well young for a teacher.
Yeah, that's right.
All right.
Yeah.
My question for you, Conor, is less existential and more to get to know more things about you. So I was wondering, what are some of the things that you love about living original area, and what are some of the things that you miss from living in the city?
Oh yeah, no, awesome. Another awesome question. I love the community feel of Warrnambool. You can go down the street and you see people that and working at the high school, that helps build the community as well. I love, the roads are quiet. There's lots of great places to go for a bike ride, a run, a walk. I literally live like 200 meters from the beach. I guess it's kind of got the quaintness of a little town, but it's sort of building, and we've got some sort of trendy restaurants and things like that. But what I miss from Melbourne is the proximity of things. You could walk down the street and you would have, like talk about restaurants. I know Jules talked about restaurants in Melbourne, and like there's a reason why it's a highlight. Even things like you could go down and go to your favorite board game store, and they'd be like heavily stocked with everything you want. Like I haven't been back to Melbourne since all this COVID craziness came about, but I can't wait till I get to go in there again because I've missed going to things like Mind Games on Swanson Street.
100%.
And
break
even
at
like
uni, I'd go there.
Yeah, even like or the the Games Workshop store on exhibition and JB Hi-Fi, even just walking down like Burke Street, there's a feel about Melbourne
Minotaur.
that I love. Oh, Minotaur, of course.
Yeah.
You know,
Melbourne Institution.
I can only spend so much money on a trip though, Dan. That's the problem.
But I just got a quick question. Connor, are you the one that's played games for the longest out of all of us? Because you've got a real deep history in games. So
Hang on, you've asked your question.
Hang on.
You
Yeah,
double
yeah.
dipping?
I
Just
was
trying
just,
to ask
I was
Connor
just
more
thinking that
questions.
then. Like, I was just, yeah.
No.
No, I'm not answering that. That can be on the. That can
No one
be
gets
part
a
of the.
free question.
That can be part of the DLC pack. That's what that is.
Just while we're on the no one gets a free question, there's about 6 of you have been like, oh, I've got 3 questions.
Got a follow up. Follow up to a
What
follow
inspired
up.
you to be a teacher? And why do you like maths? And what's your favorite McDonald's menu item? Like,
No,
your
they've been
question.
related things.
For those listening to this live, because we did this live for those who aren't listening to it live, this will be a few hours.
Wrap yourself in.
Maybe we should do an intermission so people can go to the loo.
Yeah.
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
All right. My question for Connor. Nice, easy one to round it out. We know you love Marvel. Who's your favorite superhero in that universe?
Yeah.
Great question.
It's a great question. I think.
Before you answer, Connor, you know what they say. A man's favorite superhero says a lot about him.
Yeah.
I
Precious
know,
one.
no, no one else. Do they? I don't. Yeah. I personally, I think for lots of different reasons, but I really like T'Challa, the Black Panther.
Nice.
He's great because he's so cerebral. You know, he's kind of got that. You know, he's got super strength and some really cool tech, and you know, he sort of like ticks all the boxes.
Yeah.
And some of my favorite Marvel storylines have involved him, but not like being, you know, King of Wakanda. He's been, you know, he's foregone the throne, and he's been the king of the underworld, like he's, you know, the king of the dead and things like that. He's my favorite, and I love the African culture that he comes from with Wakanda, and the vibranium and things like that. He's just, and he's always been really, really well written. But I guess, you know, if I could pick 2, my other one.
Well, no, you can't have 2.
Mitch,
No.
Mitch, is it okay if-
I'm talking. You are listening. I'm talking. I love Cyclops too. He's such a Boy Scout. He's everything that's pure, and they've done a really cool sort of flip with him in the past, where he's sort of been, you know, pushed to the edge because you know, his love of Jean Grey, and she's been sort of. I could just talk for hours. I'm sorry, so I'll stop talking about it. But Cyclops and Black Panther are probably my 2 favorite.
Nice.
Even though you asked for one.
Cool.
You want me to read the Patreon
Yeah,
questions?
go for it, Sarah. You're all over it.
All right. So this may have already been answered. I've got, what's your favorite class to teach? But are you only teaching maths at the moment?
No, I'm actually teaching my favorite class, so I can
Okay.
that's so year 12 biology is my favorite class to teach. It's the closest to what I've did at uni in terms of education. Always loved natural sciences, environmental science. It's something that me and Jules have in common. You know, I'd love to be able to teach environmental science as a subject, but unfortunately we can't get it off the ground at our school. I might do a bit more spruiking, but yeah, biology is just fantastic. I find it so interesting. It covers a whole range of topics from, you know, cellular level to ecology and evolution and migration patterns and stuff like that I find really, really interesting. That sort of, I guess, ties into a lot of board games I like as well.
Yeah. And the second one was, how did you get interested in the Lovecraftian lore?
Yeah. I guess probably from the card game. You know, I don't read as much Lovecraftian lore as a lot of other people that are in the community. A lot of my information has come from the card game, but I also just find it really interesting. You know, he was like, you know, as sort of crazy and kooky as H.P. Lovecraft was, he was really ahead of his time in terms of the way he told stories, in terms of, you know, how he created these images or explained these images that people couldn't understand. And that was part of, you know, the horror that he developed, was that people were seeing these things that they couldn't explain, but he was somehow able to explain that in his writing. I just found that really, really clever. So that's probably why, I used to read a lot of books myself. I don't read as much anymore as I used to, but he's sort of one of the great fiction authors of the 20th century, I guess, or 19th and 20th century.
Nice.
I believe it's me on the hot seat next.
Steve.
That was
Steven.
I'm glad I'm off. That was stressful.
It was pretty stressful.
People throwing extra questions all out willy-nilly. All right, Steve, my question for you is, if you could pick one holiday destination and money was not a factor, where would it be and why?
I would go skiing in Niseko again. That was my favorite holiday I've ever been on, and it was just magic. The snow was pumping. I would just go there. In fact, if money was an option, if it was one destination, I'd do the whole season there. So, yeah, just like we had more snow in one day than we have in the entire season in Australia. So for a skier, just magic.
Yeah,
Where was it, Steve? Sorry, in Japan.
Niseko. I don't even know if Niseko is the right pronunciation. Niseko, it's in Hokkaido, the North Island, and it's just
Oh, that's a great little card game, right?
In on the drive there too from Sapporo, you drive through like forest, and we saw like snow forest with deer running everywhere. It was just it's like out of a storybook. It's magic.
That sounds nice.
Cool.
Like that. Very cool. I think that'll be me next. Steve, you've done the opposite of sort of Conor. You've gone from a little country town to the big city. What do you actually miss about being in the little country town?
I actually miss quite a lot. It's I don't get me wrong. I love the fact that we've made the move, but similar to what Conor said, some of the things I miss are like my gaming group that I had in Cloncurry. 4 of the people in that gaming group were also in my basketball team. Everyone is the same. I work with a couple of them. So I work with them, played basketball with them, played board games with them. So the friends that you make in those small towns are like this. It's a really tight friendship because you do everything with each other. And to an extent, you're all there for a similar reason. Obviously, there's locals and they've been there forever, but a lot of the friends that I made had gone out there for work, or, in our situation, we went out there for Helen's work. And so you're all from different parts of the world. Like some of my best friends I made out there are from New Zealand, others are from Samoa. And then, one of the guys that I was in my gaming group moved to Canada after he left Cloncurry. And, it's just awesome stories. And it's kind of like, because everyone eventually leaves, it's like you've got the friends all over the world, all from this little tiny small town. You think, how did that have actually come to pass? So, yeah, definitely the people.
I like it. Thank you.
I'm up, I believe. So here's one for you, Shivo. You have to create the Avengers of sports. Who do you pick and why?
I like it.
We're back.
Well, okay. That's a good doozy. All right. Well, if I just start with who my favorite sports people are, and then work from there. So Magic Johnson, he would be the glue that holds everyone together, because he's like, it's all he did. He provided, made other people better. So he'd be like the Captain America, which makes sense because he probably might be the only American on the list, I'd reckon. And then I'd have Rafael Nadal would just be the absolute, like, just the workhorse, just, getting it done. Just no one can handle his superpower would have to be like, I don't know, throwing ninja stars with his left hand. I don't know.
Really big left hand.
Massive elbows. Yeah. I'd probably have to throw Sterlo in there. Old Peter Sterling. Just what a great, I mean, I don't know, like when you take Rafael Nadal and Magic Johnson and Peter Sterling.
He had great hair. Like he really did have great hair. He had
great hair. That's correct. I don't know. And then like, there's so many, like I could go through all the Olympians and stuff, but I don't know. How many do I need to make? That's 3. Give me a number of them.
Okay. Let's say you've got pick two more.
Two more. Okay. I'd actually put Billy Slater in there as kind of like the speed person, the one that everyone wants to watch because he's always exciting. That's Billy. And for the last one, no, don't be ridiculous. No, yeah, look, I'll probably go back to Mookie Betts. There you go. Baseball legend, played for the Red Sox, won a flag with the Red Sox, and then went and moved to Los Angeles, which is, I love the Lakers, but I hate the Dodgers, but I still love Mookie Betts. And also is a world championship 10-pin bowler, as well as being like a baseball fan. So, yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Mm.
That's my 5.
Yep.
Cool.
I thought you might put Tony Lockett in there as your Hulk. That sort of.
Yeah, see, I did think about AFL, but I'd just be talking out of turn because I don't mind AFL, but I don't know enough about AFL to throw an AFL player in there. So, yeah, sorry.
It's me, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Sarah.
What is your earliest memory, Steve?
I don't know if it's my earliest, but it's the one that stands out the most. When I was, and I found out this many years later, but when I was young, like 5, my dad actually got told he had 6 months to live and he had cancer. So he and Mum, this is all unbeknownst to us as kids, he basically just took us on holidays everywhere. We went to New Zealand, we went up to Daydream Island, Lindeman Island, and do all these things. And it was because it was kind of thinking, I want to make these last few moments of my life, great. And then later found out that he was misdiagnosed and he didn't have cancer. He just had a low pulse rate and is allergic to the cold.
Wow.
And they got misdiagnosed. So, but one of those trips was Lindeman Island, and we had a pool in our backyard, and I couldn't swim. And then Lindeman Island had a pole that went across the pool, and I went swimming the entire time in Lindeman Island, and I convinced myself that I couldn't swim in a pool unless it had a pole going across it. So I remember swimming in Lindeman Island, and that's probably the memory that sticks out.
Wow, that is a cool story.
Oh.
80.
Steve, my question is somewhat similar to Connor's in a way, but you are more involved. You're forming a band, and you have to be in the band as well. Who are the fellow musicians that are along with you for the ride, and what will you be playing in that band?
Kazoo.
I'd play the bass because it's the only instrument I actually somewhat know how to play. I get the drummer from Dave Matthews Band because he's incredible. I'd get Tom Morello on guitar. And I'd probably throw Matt Bellamy from Muse up as vocals. Yeah, that's probably it. Just a 4-piece. That's all we need.
Cool.
They'd be really let down by their bass player.
A lot.
You stand there with sunglasses and look cool. Isn't that what bass players do?
They would sack me and go and get Les Claypool, and that'd be amazing.
Steve, when we first met, correct me if I'm wrong, but when you were in Cloncurry, one of your roles was like a counselor for kids. Is that right?
Yeah, you support officer. Yep.
Yeah, great. So, and this is a 2-part question, and Mitch can go to hell. What do you think it was that motivated you to become a counselor for kids? And was it ever a time when you found yourself inspired by something that a kid said or did?
It's another great question, Dan. You're on fire. Yeah, my wife, always being a school teacher, she was like, "Oh, you should become a teacher. You'd be really good at it." And I was like, "No, I couldn't handle that. I see how much work you do, and I don't know whether the kids would get along with me very well." And when we moved to Cloncurry, we moved there for Helen's career, so I didn't really have a job. And at one point, there was a position at the school that was for a teacher aide. I'm like, "All right, I'll give it a go." And I immediately understood why my wife thought I'd be a good teacher, because just building those relationships with the kids was amazing. And the opportunity after doing that was part of my job. So my job was essentially to help kids out in the classrooms and help with reading groups and things like that. But on the lunch breaks, I'd go and I'd hang out with some of the kids that find out their stories, and we connect over different things or whatever else. And then when the youth support officer position came up, I'm like, wow, I could just do that as my job. So what inspired me was spending that time at the school with some kids and just building that rapport and I put tickets on myself, but one of the things that the principal said was that she loves the fact that I just talk to them like people. I don't talk down to the children. I don't think I'm better or whatever else. I'm just one-to-one with them. And so I thought, well, that'd be really good when I'm doing like face-to-face counseling sessions. And it was, and it was the most rewarding job I've ever had. But as far as being inspired, wasn't just one kid. There was a group of kids that were not doing particularly well at school, not engaged, not really taking part. And where myself and another teacher, we identified it, and we actually started a basketball team. We called them the Wagon Wheel Wizards. We got a sponsorship from the local pub, and we got them jerseys, and we got them training. And the whole idea was that if they weren't performing at school, then their minutes would get cut in the games. So they never be cut from the team, because then they lose all hope. It was always like you'd only get 4 minutes or whatever else. But what the idea was is that they'd end up starting to do really well at school, and because the basketball was the carrot. And I left last year, which was the 4th year that was running, and they won the local basketball comp. They won the championship. That was the first time they'd won it. And it was like they went undefeated that whole season. And the first season they got thrashed by like 40 points every game. So they'd gone from that to there. But more importantly is that of the kids that were in that team last year, about 3 were in year 12 and the rest were in year 11. The 3 kids finished year 12, 2 went to uni, and then the rest of the team are all in year 12 this year. They're all expected to finish and do well out the other end. And we've had, it's not about, oh, we did such a great job. It's more about the fact that you can see the difference that you've made in those kids. And those kids, like, I still get phone calls from them having left months later, just, oh, how you going? How's Brisbane? This is what we're up to. They won the comp again this year without myself and Priyan, who was the other guy, the teacher that was working with us. So that's the story I tell about my time, because it's not just one kid, it's an entire group. And what's happened since then is the person who took over the branch manager role at the PCYC where I worked, he's also now got the next group of year 8 kids. And now, because it's cool, they want to do it. They were like, oh, I want to be a wizard. I want to, and it's like, oh, that's something that we created, and that's awesome. So, yeah. That's awesome.
My question, I think you may have already answered in a previous one, but I was wondering, what if you don't have access to board games, what does an ideal week look like for you?
Yeah, ideal, if I could take myself to any point in my life, not right now, would be, sports mad. I used to, when I was single and without kids and all the rest, I used to, every day of the week except Sunday, I'd play sports. So it was tennis, squash, basketball, volleyball, cricket. Yeah. I used to play rugby. Just sport. Just being able to do it again. Like, I remember I've got bad knees, but I remember the last time I played tennis, and I played tennis at a decent level, a fairly high level. But I remember I played last year just before I left Cloncurry, and I was so afraid to plant my foot and change direction that I just ran around in a circle. So I didn't have to. So I'd love to be able to get back and just play a proper game of tennis. Would be awesome.
Cool.
Nice one. All right. My question is, what is your favorite part of traveling? And are there any hidden gems in Australia that you'd like to share?
Favorite part of traveling would probably be, because I used to be a travel agent, so I plan my holidays. So I think the favorite part is when you plan something and then you arrive and it's better than you expected, and they're like, wow, I can't believe, it's something that's like not, not the typical postcard stuff that you find. The best example of that is, and I'm stuck on sport again, but I went to the US in 2016 and I went to an ice hockey game at San Jose, and just I got there early. So I randomly went and asked a guy where I could get some food, and he picked up my accent straight away, and he invited me down into like the premier access part of the Shark Tank. And they were called the San Jose Sharks. That's the Shark Tank. And like, we had this crazy food and drinks, and he introduced me to the general manager. We got to go and watch the practice warm up and stuff. And this is like day one of my holidays. I was like, this is out of control. So, but as far as hidden gems in Australia are concerned, there's two that I can think of straight away. Firstly, the Caraginis in northwestern WA. I came across them while working over there in the mines many years ago, and was just like, wow, how is this like this barren area, and you just drop into these gorges and the magic rainforest, magic waterfalls and all kinds of stuff. That was a surprise. And then just anywhere out west, there's so many places and where I've traveled, so I assume it's the case everywhere, you just don't know of unless you're there, like, the Lawn Hills and Adele's Grove. Just near Cloncurry, 5 minutes out of town, is a huge big dam that's got freshwater crocodiles that are fine. You can just swim past them.
Was that the dam they used in Australian Survivor?
Yeah, it is. Yeah
Right.
Yeah. So it's just, we used to go there kayaking and fishing and water skiing, all kinds of stuff. And you don't associate water sports with Cloncurry, but we absolutely had that at our doorstep.
Cool.
And swimming past crocodiles, did you say?
Yeah. Well, I say that like, oh, how rebellious, but it was like, I think once we saw a crocodile at that dam, because they don't love people, but they're there, and there's plenty of times where people have gone out kayaking and a crocodile swum past, and it's it's quite
it's Aussie. On your mate, get on your
It was actually a funny story
here, you scallywag.
when we had the huge floods. They had ABC News reporting, and the water was gushing over the gorge, gushing over the dam wall, and a croc went over the damn wall. It's on the back. It was just brilliant. That's just like, that's so us. That's awesome.
Okay.
Okay,
Right.
so I think we're. Oh,
You
did
go.
you miss you, Mitch?
No. I was just going to say that's it, isn't it? On to the Patreon question.
Oh, you're confusing me now.
Shut up,
It's easy
Mitch.
to do. It's easy
Nurse.
to do. What's the best restaurant experience that you've had?
Oh, I know. When, again, we're back in the Seiko now. My wife and I went there on a holiday. We went skiing, and one night we went into Cochin, which is just about 10, 15 minutes from there. And we went to this a ramen bar, but it was just someone's converted house that they made the downstairs into a ramen restaurant. And I'd gone in and I'd just ordered some type of ramen. I can't remember what it was, but Helen was like, "Oh, I'll get the curry that they had on." Anyway, they brought out my ramen, and it's in a bowl, like it's huge. It's a massive bowl. I'm like, how the hell am I going to get through this? And then they didn't bring out Helen's food for ages. I'm like, what's going on? And then they eventually did, and it was this tiny little curry that was like so small. I'm like, oh, that's why they brought it out, because they're looking at me going, well, we want them to finish around the same time. So I'd had mine for like 20 minutes, and Helen just had massive food envy. We ended up sharing the ramen because I couldn't eat all of it anyway. But it was that thing, like, if you go to a ramen bar, you order ramen. But it was so good. And the people there were lovely. And it was just, sitting in someone's, dining room almost. It was excellent.
Nice. The other question is again about sports. So I'm going to pivot just for a second and say, is there anything else that you collect at the moment? Like, other than board games, you've got a collection of board games. What other collections do you have? And maybe this is still sports related.
Peter Sterling's here.
I'll lock it.
Yeah, I'm not much of a collector. I used to have a massive CD collection, but MP3s took care of that.
Printer filaments.
Printer filaments, yeah. That's fair. I don't know. I'm not much of a collector. So, yeah, not really.
Playmats, since you've got one on your
Yeah,
chair.
play
person.
mats.
sitting on.
That's a good
Like,
one, actually. Because you've got a rack too, don't you, Steve?
I do have a towel rack full of play mats. So, yep, there you go. I mean, I guess that's not board game related, I guess.
Well,
Board game
I guess
adjacent.
it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
All right.
Next
so that's
up.
it.
Who's
Yeah.
next on
Next
the
up is
grill?
Def.
Def is next.
Ooh.
Oh, hang on. I need to close this 18x6 I've been playing. Hang on. Okay, here we go.
Right, Mitch.
All right. That's right. I forgot him first. So, Def, when/where are you at your absolute most relaxed where you can ignore all of life's stresses?
In the ocean.
Any particular ocean or just anyone?
Anyone with lots of waves and sort of turbulent seas.
You like it rough?
Edging on dangerous. Yeah. I like that feeling between, enjoyment and fear, I guess. I don't know. I grew up in Athens, and near Athens, about 80 kilometers away, is a coastal city, which is, as ugly as any other Greek coastal city, but it had this little beach that, for whatever reason, got really huge winds every summer. And I remember I used to walk down the road every evening, because the evening was when the waves were getting stronger. And I had so much anticipation to see if the waves were big enough to scare everybody off the beach. So that meant that was the perfect time for me to go in. And I still have that imprinted in my memory.
Yeah, right. Did you get to the beach much around now that you're out here in the country with the best beaches in the world?
Not yet, but I plan to start doing that soon, hopefully.
Yeah, cool.
Def, my question is to do with your work, because I don't quite understand. So you work for a tech company, one of the biggest tech companies going around, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you're a cartographer, and I don't know how those two mix.
I understand because I use the software at my work. I just figured that out recently. Go ahead.
So yeah, my studies around two things that marry IT and cartography, I suppose. They're called geographic information systems and remote sensing, which is the study of Earth from space, from satellites. So when I was a kid, I used to love maps, and growing up, I ended up in the National Technical University of Athens in the School of Surveying Engineering. And that happened by complete accident, by the way, because the way exams are in Greece, you sort of take your best shot at it and you end up in whatever institution gets you in with the marks that you get. And I wasn't sure I was going to do anything in that school until I saw they were the only school in Europe that had some of these, advanced remote sensing classes. And it's a very interesting story, because on our second year, we ended up visiting the NASA Goddard Space Flight Center in Maryland in the US. And half the staff there were Greek graduates from that school, because there was only 2 universities in the world at the time that were teaching this stuff. So it kind of evolved from that. And I've, moved on from doing technical stuff to now doing more commercial and business stuff. But my passion for cartography and, marrying it up with IT and computers is still there.
Fair enough.
Nice. I like it. My question for you, Def, was tell me about your experience from moving to Australia, and like what were some of your biggest culture shocks when you came here?
Oh God, I have so many stories. I even thought about starting an online, stick figure comic book series about this, because it is so crazy. So here's the first thing that happened, right? You don't need to go far. First thing that happened, I arrived in Australia on Friday morning, 6 a.m. I didn't, my contract was starting on Monday morning. So I had the weekend to, get to the hotel and whatever else. I arrive at the hotel, they tell me, oh, sorry, sir, your room is not going to be ready until 2 p.m. I was like, well, okay. I mean, I had been on a plane for 22 hours straight, so that's not ideal. But let me just, walk towards my work and say hello to everyone. I'm here, and I'll see you on Monday. So I rock up at work and they all welcome me and it's all good. And then they say, hey, Dev, just pop over to the bank and open a bank account so we can pay you. And immediately you could see, like, people tell me this story now, that you could see my color change and stress coming up and me starting to get sweaty and everything. Because in Greece, when you have to deal with, any public institution, any bank, any kind of public service, it's like the most difficult thing in the history of difficult things, right? So, I don't know if you've seen any of these funny movies, but like you rock up in the agency with, 20 different envelopes full of paperwork, and you reach on the 20th and they say, yeah, but you're missing that 21st thing. And you go back and after 2 weeks you bring it and they say, yeah, but you're missing that 22nd. So I go down to the bank, and holding half my luggage was bloody paperwork from Greece, because I didn't know what I was going to need, Are they going to need my paperwork from the military? Who knows? So I rock up in the bank and fully expect to be there the full day and not get anything done. 10 minutes later, I was out, completely baffled that I had already a bank account. It was so strange, so bizarre, that I had to call Dimi, who was, by the way, in Greece and asleep at the time, and say, I just had a bank account open in 10 minutes. There's something wrong. So, I mean, yeah, any story around dealing with government or public service agencies is quite entertaining.
That's cool. I like that.
Conor, I
Right,
think.
up to me again. I guess a bit similar, but you're one of our two most recent Australians. What's something about Australian culture that still shocks you to this day?
Oh, that still shocks me. I don't know. I think one of the things that I'm trying to get used to is that people are genuinely happier, I think, compared to most Europeans, not just the Greeks. They sort of seem to have this natural good vibes, which could be anything as far as I know. I didn't grow up here, but it is admirable, and it's one of the things that immediately win you over when you arrive in this strange place. That's another story, by the way. The first day I walked out of the hotel, the next day after that, to go and visit Melbourne and just see what the city is about. Never been here before. Came back, did a Skype call with my parents. They told me, what did you think? And I said, people are smiling at me. I had to check myself. Did I leave my zipper on or something? I don't know why people are smiling at me. But this is like a genuine difference. Like in Europe, and especially in the Balkans, in the Mediterranean, people are naturally, I don't know, instinctively suspicious, or I don't know how to explain it. They're angrier. So it's quite a phenomenal chance to be in a place like this.
All right, Def, I've got a question for you. When did you buy your first comic, and what was it?
I mean, I've got my dad to thank for this, because he used to buy me American comic books when I was very, very young, before I go to school in Greece. And this is how I came to learn to read English before I go to school in Greece. But one comic book I do recall very clearly, it must have been one of the firsts, I think, was actually a duck story. It was the Zodiac Circle, I think it was called, with all the sort of the characters from the duck universe. It was this 12-chapter epic story, which I'm sure I wouldn't be as impressed now if I read it, but it was quite phenomenal. I remember it.
How old were you? Do you remember?
I must have been, I hadn't been in school yet, so probably 5.
Okay. Right. Nice.
Def, your first piece of music that you purchased, either like an EP or a single, what was it? And there's a follow-up question.
Of course there is.
My first music I purchased, it could have been Roxette.
Okay. Nothing like traditional, like in Greece, like a Greek band.
No,
or
I
anything?
didn't listen to Greek music when I was young. I hated it.
No,
that-
Zembekika, mate.
my follow-up question was can you sing it? So
Oh.
Sing us some Roxette.
No,
His answer is no.
Was it the look?
it was the look.
Yeah, of course.
Very good. Def, my question is, because I love trivia and given you're an expert in the field of cartography, is there any cool trivia or tidbits about map making that we can use in conversation to make us sound clever?
One thing that people always seem to find interesting, and I even use it in some conferences, in cartography conferences, mind you, and people still don't know about a lot of this stuff, is that the maps that we use and we grow up learning at school, they're very distorted representation of reality. No map can accurately represent an ellipsoid like the Earth, but the one that we still use now is extremely distorting sizes. It's a Mercator projection map, which means that it retains navigation lines. You know how the lines on the map are parallel and they all seem to meet in the North Pole and the South Pole. The reason we've been using these maps is since the 1600s for navigation purposes, because if you follow that line, it will take you north. You know, if you're following it, you're going north. And this is the reason why this map has been so widely accepted. But it does have a huge impact as to how we perceive the sizes of countries and continents. And in fact, many people and researchers believe that it is in part responsible for a lot of the views that we have over certain peoples of the earth. So I'll give you a quick example. And if you Google this, you'll find it very easily. But if you look at any map that you've seen in school or even now anywhere in an office, you'll see that Greenland, for instance, is roughly the same size as Africa, or is bigger than Africa, and Europe is about the same size as Africa as well. Well, Africa is 11 times bigger than Greenland, and it's 3 times bigger than Europe in reality. But because Africa is close to the equator, and Europe is up north, and Greenland is obviously way up north, their sizes get exaggerated in this map projection. So imagine that in our representation of the world, it's imprinted in our subconscious in our brains growing up that, Africa is potentially less important than what it actually is, because it is this massive piece of land that actually dominates the planet if you see a projection that actually retains sizes. So there you go.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
That's fascinating.
All right. I think it's up to me now, isn't it?
Yep.
All right. Lighthearted one to end off. What is your favorite movie of all time?
The Nightmare Before Christmas. Tim Burton. He is, in my opinion, the master storyteller. I can probably, you asked me to sing your Roxette before. I can probably sing this entire movie by heart from start to finish. This is how many times I've seen it. Danny Elfman's music is, I think, is phenomenal, and just the storytelling, the setting is just something it's deep in my heart.
Nice.
Down to the patrons.
Okay, patrons. So, how did you get your username, the Jaff?
Oh, come on.
Is it too secret?
Not anymore, it isn't.
I know about it.
Yeah, so there's this book by Stephen King, and everybody that's read it will immediately recognize this this username or this, this name I've been using in our podcast episodes. It's one of the main characters in The Great and Secret Show, from Clive Barker. Sorry, not Stephen King, obviously. It's Clive Barker that wrote the book. I even have the graphic novel here. At some point I have to read
It's
it.
ready to go. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite horror books that I've read. Quite fascinating, and there's two characters in that book, Fletcher and Jaff, and Randolph Jaff becomes the Jaff because he becomes this kind of evil thing rather than a human. And it started as a private joke because I wanted to see how many of you knew about this and would recognize this. And for months, you've been asking what it is, and nobody had guessed it or caught it. And I think, Sarah, you read the book recently, and so it was revealed.
Yeah, I had to corner you about it. Like, that's it. I need to know what this is. You're like, you have to read the book.
Oh, that's a shame. I thought you just came across the book and were like, "Oh, the Jaff."
I was Googling the Jaff, and all these different variations, and I couldn't come up with anything.
It's interesting though.
Yeah, it's a really good story too. So the other question from the Patreons was, what is it? So if you can go back to I know this is probably not possible, but if you could go back to when you were a kid and you first saw a map, what was it, do you think, that really fascinated you about them?
I think the exploration, I think the sense of unknown, the sense that some parts of this cartograph were at some point unexplored, and people were making the first steps there and discovering new places. And people have always been explorers and dreamers, and now that they've kind of touched on most parts of the earth, they're trying to look upwards. And I guess that's the simplest way I can explain my feelings from it. I can't remember exactly what it was, but something along those lines.
All right. Well, we might just change it up a little bit because Mitch was due to go next, but we'll get Adrian next. Change the order a little bit. So, Mitch, do you want to start off with questions for Adrian?
I can do that for sure. So, Adrian, you still with us?
Sure. Yeah, I'm still here.
You ready? How's the heart rate?
Teddy. Yeah, all right.
Yeah, we're still got to be friends after this, all right?
Yeah, we'll be fine.
Yeah, I can't wait.
All right, mine's a pretty easy one, I think. If you won $20 million on the lotto, what would your first purchase over 100,000 be, not including a house?
Do I have any contacts that I want? Or is it what would I buy now?
What do you mean?
Well, if I have Pablo Escobar's number, can I call him?
No, you don't. No. You won. What night are we at tonight? Thursday night. What runs on a Thursday night? Powerball. Powerball runs on a Thursday, I think, doesn't it? I don't know. You won 20 million. You get the letter tomorrow morning, not including a house. What are you going to purchase? First thing, over 100 grand.
I probably open I'd probably try and open it a big game event store in Brisbane, to be honest. That's probably what I would try and do, and just run that thing into the ground as a tax write.
Because you'd buy all the games.
I just wouldn't make any money.
Shop your own store.
Yeah, exactly. Buy one game, get 14 free. That would be my deal. It's something like that. I'd like to do something that that had a community focus, because it's such an enjoyment, and we have struggled to find venues and stuff, and something cool like that, a place for us to all go and hang out and give you a job, Mitch.
Yeah.
The toilets need to be cleaned, mate. Someone's gonna do it.
I was just gonna say, what job do I get?
I remember having a dream somewhat similar to that, and I was telling Adrian, he's like, "Don't tell me, this is heartbreaking. I want it to happen."
Yeah, it did actually. Yeah, I was very sad. It wasn't a reality.
Great. I'm glad I'm cleaning toilets in your dream, Steve. That's fantastic.
My question is similar to some of the questions that got asked by Def, which was, how long have you called Brisbane home, and what made you choose Brisbane when moving here?
Work, really. Like I came out here for work stuff at first, and then obviously, like, you know, Finn came along, and that definitely kind of cemented it as a home for me, because I used to do a lot of traveling and backpacking and stuff. I never really felt at home. It's very weird. And the more I went away for work and then came back, the more it didn't feel like home anymore. And, you know, you've seen the pubs and stuff in the UK, like some of them are, the one that was around the corner from me is called the Murderers. It's very thematic. But yeah, it's 400 years old, and I'd say that the barkeep was close to 400 years old. So like nothing changed at all, and I was changing radically. So, and yeah, I just didn't want to be there anymore. And yeah, Brisbane's lovely, like great weather, great people. Like Def said, people here are good. They're pretty happy. You know, a tradie or a, you know, someone just doing an average job and stuff can afford to have like a jet ski and a house and things like that. They're not out without you, you know, out of your reach. Whereas at home, like it's I think it's a bit more of a struggle, to be honest. So yeah.
And how long have you been out here?
Permanently, I think for like 3 and a bit years, but on and off for 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, right.
Something like that around there. Yeah.
That surprised me, actually. Yeah.
I thought it would be longer.
Yeah.
Well, I was, you know, I grew up with like a different upbringing, and like I've done a lot of traveling, a lot of backpacking and stuff. So I suppose my accent's a bit jumbled. So a lot of people think
I'm just shocked you already swear like an Australian. So
I did that before I got here.
Well, that's how it actually leads really well into my question for you, 80, because I know you've mentioned you lived on like military bases and things growing up, and I just want to know what that's sort of like. Do you have any memories about that? Because that's such a different sort of upbringing to me.
I remember that petrol on the military base was less than a quarter of the price of the English petrol station, which was less than half a mile away. I remember going from my house, going into that petrol station at the base and filling up maybe 15, 20 litre jerry cans and then driving it back to the house, because it was just so much cheaper. And then I remember getting pulled over by a cop, and they have like a mixed police service there with a British cop and an American cop, because there's actually 3 massive, large military bases there. And I remember the British cop not being very impressed, but the American cop being like, "Nah, you're all right, move along," kind of thing. So that's kind of cool. I remember that when you drive into that military base, because my car, because I'd only just started driving and stuff, wasn't registered under the family's name, they would send dogs through the car, and they would slide a scanner underneath the car and stuff to check for bombs.
Yeah.
Because it was just around, 9/11. So, security was quite high. But I also remember like they had a bowling alley with like a dude there that was like something out of like, say, the Big Lebowski or something. Like he was a real kind of redneck dude with teeth like the Predator. And he's like, he was lovely, man. He was the loveliest dude. And he's like, you go there and bowl, and he'd be like, "Oh, y'all are under 4 years old, right? You guys are under 4." And we were all like 17. And we were like, yeah. And he's like, "Well, bowling for you is $1. So you just only pay $1 to bowl, and you buy 10 games for $10. Like,
that's
it was
cool.
Different world. Like you go to Taco Bell and there's a guy there with an M16 strapped to his back.
Oh wow.
With like grenades and everything. Like it's just, it was
That's bonkers.
really cool. I really enjoyed it. It was just very different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me again, I think. All right, Adrian, what is the strangest place you've woken up in, and is there a PG-ish story to go along with it?
I can tell you a PG story of a strange place I've woken up in, but it's not the strangest place. Yeah, I was actually in Laos and I was on my motorbike and I came across this massive like crash in the mountains and a truck had tipped over and there was like coal, like this truck and dog spilled over into the mountainside, so you couldn't get past. It was coal all the way up the side, like you just couldn't get past the terrain, and no one was moving it because it's obviously very dirty and gross and it would take them a fair while to get it sorted. And I met this guy there who spoke very little English and I ended up walking with him for like an hour through the bush and ended up at a school and met a bunch of people there that were, you know, very friendly and wanted to know more about myself. And I ended up like somehow getting roped into doing an English class and it ended up staying the night in the school. And then ended up staying the night at the guy's house the next day and then just, yeah, proceeded on my travels after that. So it was pretty cool, pretty unusual. Haven't done that before and haven't done it since. So.
Okay, that's
Great story.
to me. I know you love James Blunt.
Nothing wrong with that, man. No, I'm proud of my heritage.
Which other three artists, musical artists, are you most embarrassed about actually liking?
The problem is I'm not embarrassed about this. So
Yeah, I don't think you're
doesn't-
embarrassed about it.
Doesn't bother me at all.
So,
Celine
fine,
Dion
so-
will be up there. We'll just go straight there. Celine Dion. Probably none of them are that embarrassing though, because I just don't find them embarrassing. I like Celine Dion. I like
Justin Bieber.
Meatloaf. Yeah, but I don't like him.
And Snow, Informer.
I love. I don't mind that either. I love Take That as well. I love Take That's old stuff and their newer stuff. Like I think Gary Barlow's a legend. He was the one that did our, I think it was 2012 Olympic opening. He orchestrated all of that and was a big part of that with Danny Boyle, the movie director. So you know, like that's a guy who's from a British boy band that's pretty good. Like East 17. Do you know East 17?
I remember East 17. Yeah.
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 That's it. So yeah, I like all that stuff. I like a bunch of rubbish that everyone else hates. So
I like Meatloaf. You're okay. It's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah, Meatloaf's cool.
I got a top 3 question for you as well, because you and I talk movies all the time. But what are the top 3 movies that will always make you cry?
Definitely Green Mile.
Mhm.
That's like I can't get through that film. Like there's just no way. And I even though it's absolutely like been torn to death, I can't not cry when I watch the Rise of Skywalker through happiness and through cheesiness. It's so cheesy and such a like throwback to the other films and my past of watching all those films growing up, to see all the ending and everyone coming together to defeat the big bad. Like that just makes me cry for some reason. I don't really know why. I just get real happy and excited, I think. And another one. I think Dead Man's Shoes is it gets me a bit upset because I didn't expect the ending. And I've only watched it once because it really shocked me, but I cried a lot through that. So
Nice.
yeah, Dead Man's Shoes is a real good film. Like if you get a chance to see it, it's a British cult movie from mid 90s. And yeah, it's a really, really crazy messed up story, but really, really good. So
The question I had was round about those lines as well. Is what is your most loved memory you have from your childhood or growing up?
So my uncle used to live in a old watermill. It was a massive, huge property that had been split up into like, I think 3 different smaller properties. And he used to actually live on the gate, like the gatekeep. So he would be able to pull the gate up and down and lower it through this big winding kind of mechanic, very steampunky looking under his house. And when I was like sort of 14, 15, we used to go and camp a couple of miles up the river. We used to just fill the boat with like beers and just, you know, firewood and all this crazy tents. And we used to just go all the way up river and then stay there for a couple of nights. And then on the Sunday, he would lift the gate to let the water flow through faster, so that we would have like a really cruisy ride all the way back. And I used to
That's
kind of
so
like
cool.
that. Yeah, it was kind of fun. So yeah, that mill was really cool. Like, you know, just building tree houses and all that kind of stuff was great fun. So yeah, like
Awesome.
that.
Cool.
All right, my question for you, Adrian. You've told me so many crazy stories, and I was wondering, do you have any near-death experiences?
Oof. So many, like on the highways in India and stuff, like where you're just like grabbing the car door and you're like, like, what are you doing? There was one time actually when I was actually in India, there was a car crash or something, and I think it's part of their cultural thing that only the families can come to remove the bodies. And we were waiting in traffic for I think like 7 or 8 hours at this point, and my driver just left and was gone. He just got on a moped and was just gone. And I was like, okay, fair enough. Like, he didn't tell me where he was going, didn't explain anything. And like an hour and a half later, he came back with like 2 chocks of wood. And then he put the chocks of wood on the central reservation of the highway and then proceeded to drive over the thing onto the wrong side of the highway and just go as fast as he could. And every car behind us started to follow us. And it was just like wacky races. And there's cars coming at us and he's like moving lanes. And I was just, yeah, that was pretty scary. Like, I don't think it was near death enough, but
Yeah.
it was,
It sounds it.
yeah, it was pretty intense. So.
Jeez.
But
How
eventually,
long will they
like,
have to wait for your family to come pick you up?
yeah, but eventually, like, all of the cars ended up like facing each other, and it just made a worse traffic jam. Like, it was just ridiculous.
That's mental.
So, yeah,
That's nuts.
it's quite funny. There was another time actually in a similar situation where I was actually like just absolutely exhausted. Same traffic jam, but you know, a couple of hours prior to my driver coming back, and a guy came over with a basket and put it on my lap through the window. And I was like, sweet, he's going to have some food in here, some like, you know, samosas or some onion bhajis or something. I pulled the lid off and a cobra stood up out of the basket. And I threw the basket on the floor and like jumped into the back seat and started screaming. And the guy was like, no poison, no poison. And this thing was biting his hand like viciously, but obviously I think they take the teeth out.
Yeah, they do fang them.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
I just had no idea, like, at all.
No poison, no poison.
I
don't care. I don't want
to. Yeah, that's pretty much my attitude. I don't care.
Wow.
So yeah.
All right.
Okay, Patreon questions. How did you get into your growing and processing and roasting of coffee at your place?
I just bought the plants because I just wanted to grow stuff, and I love coffee, and it just became something that kind of interested me. But I've definitely had like more success with other plants like blueberries and mulberries and other berries. Coffee's actually quite hard to grow, and the thing with coffee is you only get beans from stuff that's 18 months old. Like, so the growth, so all new growth, you're not going to see anything on it for a year and a half. So it is quite a slow process. So I haven't had a bajillion kilos yet. I've had a nice enough amount, but nothing to be like writing home about. But, you know, every year that passes, that quantity gets more and more. And I think in probably 3 years' time, each one of my 20 plants will give me 7 kilos. So
Wow.
I'm kind of
Great.
looking forward to getting to that point. So
Yeah.
Then you just need to find a cat to eat them
Yeah.
and
yeah, exactly.
sell it to Mike.
Buy some mantra and cat or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Civet.
Civet, that's it, yeah.
That's it. But no, I hope to get them, and because there's a lot of places that actually offer like roasting services for really cheap, like $1.99 a kilo and stuff. So you can just take your beans there, and then they'll take care of the rest. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And what led you into collecting comics? When did you start collecting comics? And what's your absolute favorite in your collection?
I started with actual Fleer, the Marvel Fleer cards, so the little collectible trading cards. And just to get those was like, you go to the local news agents and all of a sudden you just bought so many that they were like sold out. So you'd have to go somewhere else to find them. And I went to a comic shop and was like blown away by all the stuff. And there, I mean, back then people were smoking in the comic shops as well. So it was like a different experience. And yeah, I walked in there just to a haze of smoke and a bunch of people who were way older than I was. I would have only been like 11 or 12, and just being amazed with what they had there. And I just haven't stopped buying them ever since. And I tend to buy myself one or two like every year as a present still. My favorite, I really like, I think it's Spider-Man 514, possibly 514, the one which was the only comic that acknowledged the Twin Towers thing, which was quite cool. And it's like an all black cover with just the gray writing on the front. Doesn't give you any inclination of what the story is about. But I actually bought that at the time of the 9/11 thing, just after it. When this one came out, I bought it from the shelf. Another one that I really liked, but I don't have anymore. I had an original Walking Dead #1, and when that TV series hit off and went crazy gangbuster on season 2, I sold that comic, and I bought it for $2.99.
Wow.
So £2.99. So it would have been the equivalent of like $5. And yeah, I sold it for considerable more.
Tell us how much.
3.5. Yeah, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's the
Wow.
it's the fastest growing modern age comic book for monetary value, and I think it still might be that case today.
Wow.
So,
Wow. Nice.
Awesome.
cool.
All right. So that's the end of Adrian's questions. We'll go on to Mitch, which means I'm first because you're normally first.
Yeah.
All right. I've been looking forward to asking this question.
Oh no, here we go.
So you've mentioned that your family was involved in equestrian before.
Yeah, I have mentioned that. Yeah,
Did you participate at all?
I did actually. Yes.
Yeah. That's why he loves all the westerns. I knew it.
Yeah, no, it was just a thing, you know, with everyone in my family. My grandparents were into it. My mum was into it. My sister was into it. She's older than I am. So it was just a thing, like every kid gets pushed into soccer or netball or whatever, and I just got pushed into equestrian. I actually rode in a junior steeplechase at Rosehill Racecourse.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, when I was probably about 10 or 11.
Yeah, right.
At the time. Yeah, I think I came 4th or 5th or something. But yeah, yeah. Got to about 13 and was like, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. It's far too much work. I'm more interested in shooting hoops and chasing girls. if I'm honest.
Big hammer. Big hammer.
Here we go, Mike.
My question for you is pretty innocent. I had to get rid of all the other ones. Got to be nice to you. I'm curious as to where like your love for the USA comes from, because I know we've spoken about the USA a lot and very fondly. I want to know if it has anything to do with like your love for like American basketball, if they sort of go hand in hand, or if they're two separate loves.
Yeah, it's pretty much hand in hand, I guess you would say. Obviously, basketball is a massive part of my life, and I follow the NBA quite closely. I also had when I was in high school. I had sort of two best friends that were really, really tight, and we used to play basketball together. We were on the same team, and one of the guys, his dad was our coach, and their entire family, they were all Americans. His dad had come out here for work, and brought the family with him when he was working out here for, I don't know, assignment for 10 years or whatever. And so they came out and we all went to school together. And then when we left school, all the kids went back to the US, and eventually the parents went back as well. So I stayed in touch with them. The times that I've been over, I've gone and caught up with them. Even the parents have gone, it's because they're like a second family to me. You know, you have that family that you kind of spend a lot of time with when you're kids, and you know, they're not technically your family, but you just spend so long there and things. So we sort of, call them my second mother sort of thing. And yeah, so they're all still over there, and they're all spread out as Americans tend to do. They all go off and go to college in different states and cities and countries and things. So yeah, I guess that's part of it. And so it's the basketball thing. And I don't know, I just have a affinity for that sort of stuff. I just like everything that this sort of States offers. It's all exciting. It's all, yeah. So that's pretty much it.
Cool.
Right. I'm up. So, Mitch, you're like me. You're a bit of a basketball nuffy.
Yep.
What, when you played or when you still play now, is your go-to move that you score with every time?
Well, putting that last bit on, I don't have one.
The elbow in the face.
Yeah. Look, probably the there's probably two that are my go-tos if I ever think I need to score. One would be the from the left 45, the hard drive right down the center of the lane for a layup over the center, or from the right block, a drop step spin move for the reverse layup along the baseline. They're my two go-tos.
Oh yeah. They're mine too.
Yeah. If I had a third, it'd be the corner three.
But you can't shoot.
No, that's why that's the third option. That's the Hail Mary.
Very good. I just want to let you know that if you played against me, that drive over the center, it wouldn't work.
No, you'd ride me at the rim, right? Yeah.
We met like two titans like meeting at the rim.
I'll tell you a funny story about that. When I must have been about 18. I was driving because I remember I left the car at the courts for the night. We're playing against this other team, and they're kind of rivals, but we're still friends. We weren't like, we didn't hate them. It wasn't like any sort of bad blood there, but we played hard, and both teams wanted to win. And one of the guys came down, and he was going up for a shot, and I went up and met him at the rim, as you say, like Conor, and we collided in the air, and both came down. And I came down on my ankle, and he landed on my ankle, and really like probably the worst sprain I've ever had, because his whole body weight sort of came down my ankle. But he came down on his elbow first and shattered his elbow.
Oh no!
Yeah. So we both, I couldn't stand, let alone drive or walk or anything like that. And so we both ended up at hospital that night. And I'll never forget, we were sitting in the like triage area. They'd put us in beds, but we hadn't really been admitted yet. And he was in a hell of a lot of pain, more than I was, obviously. And they'd given him a lot of drugs to make him feel a bit better about himself. And we were lying there next to each other in the hospital ward. And he's just looked over, and we were talking. And he's going, "We are aerial warriors, man." We're like, aerial combatants. Yeah, it was all the drugs, so it was hilarious. But it was a bit of fun. So yeah.
All right. My question to you, Mitch, is what was your favorite holiday destination when you were a kid?
When I was a kid. So if we're going to go back to really little kid, my grandparents bought a house that was on the lake at the suburbs called Gorican. I think it's Tuggerah Lake, which is on the central coast of New South Wales. And it was literally on the lake. Like, it was like 30, 40 meters. You would just walk down over the front lawn, and then there was steps into the lake, so you could have your little boats, and we used to go fishing and all that sort of stuff. But it wasn't like, back then, it wasn't like a beautiful, high expensive, high class house or anything like you would find up there now. It was, I remember when we first went there, it was literally just a caravan. They bought a caravan, and they stuck a caravan on this block, and it was just bushland basically. And over the years they built it up, and they built their house there. But that was, I guess, my fondest memory as a kid, is going up there on the school holidays with my sister, and just spending our whole days just mucking about in the lake, and, as I said, fishing and running about the rocks, finding crabs, all those sorts of things that you do around water. And I always had said that I would buy that property, or when they passed away, that I would be left that property, but they sold it before any of that happened. So I still drive up there every now and again. There's a reserve next to it.
Okay.
That's still there. And so I often will, if we're up that area, I'll say to Melissa, "Hey, let's just shoot down to Gorican, and we'll go check the old place out and park in the reserve for a bit."
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Cool. My question, Mitch, is what do you deem the greatest sporting moment, but it's not allowed to be basketball related?
Oh wow.
Mine all have a caveat because I know you'll just go the easy ones.
Just get the easy route. The most
Bradbury.
yeah, Bradbury.
I still don't know who that is.
Oh man.
He'll be Prime Minister one day, I guarantee.
Yeah.
Everyone else will drop out of the race and he'll just become Prime Minister.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm pretty one-sided. So once I got into basketball, I kind of shunned every other sport pretty much. I don't really follow anything too closely. So what I'll do is I'll go back to prior to me getting into basketball. I was a massive North Sydney Bears fan. So I used to love the North Sydney Bears. I used to, but we're talking Greg Florimo days, Billy Moore, Gary Larson, Daryl Halligan used to play on the wing and was the kicker. Yeah. Jason Taylor. Yeah. So anyway, sorry.
The halfback. Yeah.
Yeah. Was a mad North Sydney Bears fan. Used to follow the rugby league like crazy. No, not AFL, Adrian. He's holding up question marks.
New South Wales Rugby League, Adrian.
Yeah.
I had a 50-50 shot. I knew it was one of those two, but I didn't know which one.
Unfortunately, I never lived to see them win a premiership because they didn't get to. They were essentially disbanded when they went through the Super League and the mergers and the this and the that with the league, and they've never been back since. I know there's a bit of a push from some of the locals around North Sydney to try and bring the club back and get them back into the NRL. And I think it would be amazing. And if that ever happened, I would watch at least one game.
Cool.
Yeah.
Mitch. Now,
Dan.
on a recent episode of the podcast, you mentioned that you had a background in the music industry, and we kind of just let it just go, and we didn't actually address it. Can you elaborate on your involvement in the music industry, and do you have any highlights?
Oh man, yeah, I do have some highlights. So we essentially, it's not that special, my involvement in the music industry. I worked for Sanity Music, for those in Australia who know that. It's like a retail chain, used to sell CDs and videos and merchandise and that sort of stuff. It was a job that I took up pretty much as soon as I left school. So I worked there for about 3 or 4 years. It's where I met my wife. So she used to work there as well. So that's where we met each other. And it was it was a really cool thing, because when you working in retail, and I guess back in those days before everything was sold on the internet and things like that, a lot of the music companies and things used to, they'd come around every week, and you'd have the sales rep that were touting the new products, showing you the new groups that were out, the new release albums, all that sort of stuff. So you'd really get involved in the sort of the scene as such. And then you'd quite often be given tickets to shows, and you'd be, especially when they were doing promo tours and things like that. I saw Matchbox 20 in a tiny little sort of, it was just a little bar with a stage down the end. There was maybe 100 people there, and we left because we couldn't hear the band over the crowd, because everyone in the crowd was industry people who weren't really there to see the show. They were just talking over each other.
Wow.
Right. So yeah. So
I'd consider that a win, just quietly.
This is before anyone knew who Matchbox 20 was. It was it was their first album, and they were just doing promo stuff. So there was loads of little things like that. Highlights as far as being part of that, I got to meet Art Alexakis and Everclear, who are a huge, massive fan of that band. I know they probably skirted most people's sort of main radar, but I really, really enjoy what they do and did. I got to meet the Cause, so I got photos.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Yeah, signed photos with the Cause. I met Korn. I've met, lots of different groups that you just meet after shows and things, and meet and greets and stuff, and probably gets to the point where I don't even remember them because there were so many, which is really bad, because I'm sure some people would really have those moments as standing out. But yeah, they're probably the ones that stand out for me the most. And I played we've been in a couple of little bands. playing in, well, it's funny, Steve said he's a bass player. I was originally a guitar player, but our band had 4 guitarists and no bassist. So what we decided that the person who was the worst guitarist would switch to bass. That was me.
Picture in a banjo, Mitch.
You picture me with a banjo.
Oh, yeah.
No, I've been trying to learn ukulele lately because they're kind of cool, and my daughter's into playing a bit of guitar and she likes the ukulele as well. So yeah, that's kind of cool and fun. And yeah, maybe one day I'll be the front man for some aging rock band. I don't know. Who knows?
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Cool, man.
All right, Mitch. My question is, what are the 2 things in your life or from your life that you're really, really proud of, and why?
Oh man,
Board game scores don't count.
I'm not proud of anything I've done in board games.
It can't be the 2 wins you've had.
Yeah. Oh dear. I'm really, really proud of. I'd say the first is where I've got to in my career with work. I was a bum in school. I never really put much effort into anything. I just assumed that I was going to cruise through school and get really good scores and do whatever I wanted. I never thought that I would be required to put any work in. And when I got my HSC scores, I realized that probably wasn't the best idea. So then I ditched university. I didn't go to university. I flunked out of I didn't flunk out. I just quit on a couple of TAFE courses that I sort of started and was like, I don't want to do this. That's when I went and worked to Sanity and just got a job and got into sort of doing stuff there. Wasn't until a little while later I then switched and did a certificate at TAFE that got me into IT. And then from there I sort of just went from one thing to another. And I haven't really, I never had a plan. I've just sort of fallen into positions. I remember when I started doing shift work, which was probably about 15, maybe even 20 years ago now. It was because the job I was doing at the time, it was being made redundant. Moving that role to India. And I'd been given a deadline. I'd been given my papers that said, on this date, well, this will be your last day. And at the time I had just had a baby. That was when I just first had Brad. So there you go. It was 18 and a half years ago. And it was to the point where if I didn't find something before this job ran out, then I didn't know what we were going to do in terms of money and whatever else. And someone from within the same company came around and said, hey, we've got this position available. This is the job. We think you'd be able to do it. But it's shift work. And I'd done a little bit of shift work when I was really young in a service station, just working in a convenience store. And I swore I would never work shift work ever again because I hated it. Absolutely hated it. And so when he said, here's this job, I was like, oh, great, I'm going to have a job, at least I have some income. And then he said, it's shift work. I was like, oh, man, what am I going to do? This is, and I remember I sat down with my wife and I said, I'm going to hate this job. I really don't want to do it, but I'll take it because I don't have any choice at the moment. We need money. And I'll spend the next 12 months trying to find another job, and then just as soon as I can get out of it. As I said, that was 18 years ago and I haven't looked back. So, one thing sort of led to another. It was a job I really wasn't interested in, but when I got in and just did it, it just fell into my skill set. And I've had a lot of success from that point onwards. So, yeah, that's probably what I would say is one of the most proud moments. The second one, I'm going to go back to being a cliche and say my kids, man. They're amazing. There's times that I wish the orphanage would take them, but to anyone who's a parent out there, I guess you feel the same way. I'm not special, but you know what I feel like, and yeah, they're the number one.
Cool, thank you.
Thanks.
Very good. All right, to round it all out, Mitch, I know we've started a recent health kick and all that, but let's go back a few days.
Yep.
What is your perfect meal?
Dear, my perfect meal. That's a good one. Yeah. Can I just answer yes?
All the foods.
All of it. No, perfect meal. I would say it's going to sound strange, but I think my favorite, like if any of you guys, if I talked to you when I had my birthday recently, there's a restaurant in the hills. I think he's a 2 chefs hat restaurant. The guy's amazing. His degustation menu, which is I think like 10 or 12 courses, is just to die for. I would if I had a choice, then I would do that every night. I'd probably be sick of it pretty quickly.
For it pretty quick.
Wow. So yeah, degustation at Qua.
Nice.
Okay, Patreon questions. Got another food related one. Do you eat bacon in any other form or only bullet form?
I eat bacon in every other form. No, I don't discriminate against bacon. What sort of person discriminates against bacon?
One who's on a diet.
Yeah.
Vegan.
All right, and the other one was, if you could be anything, what would your dream job be, and why is it firefighting?
Yeah, look, I'm going to throw it out. I'm going to get a little bit sincere for a second here. I am honestly, sincerely sorry to Bubba that I accidentally misled him there, because that made me feel terrible. You know, he reached out to me and was talking to me about that, and I realized that he'd misunderstood or not he'd misunderstood, that I'd completely been a jerk. But yeah, so if you're listening, Bubba, mate, truly sorry, pal, and I'm really disappointed that actually came out the way that it did, and I'm glad that we've still remained friends. So all that said and done, I'm not a fireman. I do work shift work. What would be my ultimate dream job? Dan touched on it before, I think. Oh, well, no, it's a toss up.
I didn't touch anything. Just...
Andy shows you things. He doesn't touch things.
It'd be starting small forward for the San Antonio Spurs, or in a rock band. One of those two.
You need hair to, shake back and forwards to be in a rock band, man.
No, you don't listen to enough rock, man. There's some crazy skin-headed rock people out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we move on to Sarah.
Yeah, let's do it. Up on the grill.
All right, I'm first, aren't I?
Mm-hmm.
So Sarah, I've got, what was your first ever live concert? Tell us about it.
Oh, I'm pretty sure I didn't go to any concerts till I was 18, which is kind of sad actually, because there was some underage concerts going around, but I didn't go to any.
The Wiggles?
Sooty. I think I went to Sooty.
Oh, yeah. That's my jam.
No, my first one, I went with my brother. So me and my bro used to go to a lot of gigs together, and I really missed that about not living in the same city as him. But I think it was the Butterfly Effect. And
nice start.
they were, and they were covered by Cog as well. So it was like amazing.
Sheesh.
And I still listen to both of them now. Like, I love them still. And this is probably, they're small sort of Australian rock bands for those overseas that have no idea who I'm talking about.
Well, it's funny that I go after Mitch, because my question is also music related and live gig related. And that is, what are your all-time top 3 live gigs?
Geez. Okay. I think 2 of them are Tool. So I went to see them. The first time I saw Tool was at the Sydney Myer Music Bowl in Melbourne. So it's like an outside stage, and you're like up on a sort of hill thing. It's such a cool venue. I loved it. But I remember I was like slightly stressed through it, because Maynard is quite, pernickety, and some guy like climbed up onto the sail thing, the tent, and he was like walking along it, and they could see the police like going down to try and get the guy to come back up. And I'm like, if Maynard sees what's going on here, he might just like storm off in a huff. But I don't know, it got sorted quietly and it was all fine. I guess I just didn't want anyone to ruin that. I'm like, no, I'm finally seeing Tool. And then the big day out, probably where I saw Muse. That was an amazing big day out. I think Muse were headlining. Oh God, who else? Have forgotten everyone else that was there. There was heaps of bands there. And I'm pretty sure, actually, I think Tool were there too. Like, I think that Tool gig was the side gig for the big day out. And then they had like a bunch of all the Aussie bands that I loved. And then I won't say Tool again because that's cheating. I will say 9 Inch Nails at the Metro, which is a really small like club in Melbourne. So it was a really, cool. And that was for like year 0, I think. I don't know why he did such a small gig, but he decided to do small, like keep it small, and it was amazing.
Awesome.
Cool beans. So going from music, Sarah, just like the rest of us, we know you're a big nerd.
Yep.
Growing up as one of us nerds, did you have like a prized nerdy toy? Do you still have it? And have you passed it on to one of the kids, or they're not allowed to touch it?
I don't really have. I've got like a fluffy teddy that's kept up all right, but I think all my other toys have pretty much gone, unfortunately. But I did have a She-Ra that I loved.
That's wow. That's very cool.
Yeah, so that would probably be my favorite, my most memorable.
All right, cool.
I wish I still had it.
All right, Sarah, you're one of the few vegetarians I actually trust. So convince me to try one meat substitute, and why is it better than the real thing?
Oh God. I don't think I can really do that. The best meat substitute I had it was actually it wasn't really a meat substitute, but what they did was they made like a patty out of tofu and they smoked it, and the spices they put it. I had it at a restaurant, so I have no idea how I could make this, but I wish I could make it. I'm going to try and find out how to make it. But they used spices and they smoked it, and it actually tasted quite meaty. And the Beyond Meat burger is okay, but I couldn't convince you to try it because it's not the same.
The best not really meat you can try, Conor, is bacon bullets.
Yeah.
You're telling me there's not real bacon.
99% vegetarian.
Actually, it's funny you say that because the vegan like hot dogs are fine because like who knows what actually is in a real hot dog anyway, right?
They still have the same amount of gumbo.
Hey, do not besmirch the hot dog. You can't.
I didn't say anything negative.
So yeah, maybe try a vegan hot dog. That's probably the safest.
Sarah, you have found out that you are the star of your very own version of the Truman Show. What do you do?
Oh, that sounds anxiety inducing.
Yeah.
I don't know. Close the blinds. Geez, what would I do? I don't know. I might do what he did and get in a rowboat and keep sailing till, I don't know. It sounds kind of like some kind of nightmare, Adrian.
Yeah. Cool. That was all I had.
I'd have an anxiety attack and then try and run out of it.
For sure. Mine's a bit boring, but I got a lot of respect for people like yourself and Steve who've decided to go back to school and do further study. So I just want to know what inspires you to go back to school and enter the field of dietetics, and what simple lessons do you think we could learn about the subject?
Oh, yeah, I guess a bunch of stuff sort of pushed me in this direction. But one of them, it's a little bit sad, but it has kind of a bittersweet ending. And that is that my dad, he did have Crohn's and he suffered with that. And it's, it was a health issue that, after he passed away, I thought about I was inspired by him for one thing, because he was in the medical profession. He was in a medical profession as well. And he loved his job. He loved helping people and working in a hospital and that. So I was inspired by him. And he also said before he passed, he said that he wanted, if he had one wish for me, it was that I would have a little bit more confidence to do what I really want to do. So I guess I've been living by that every day since he's been gone. And so this uni course is part of that. And I'm just following I was always interested in food. I've always loved food, always been interested in it. But I also see that a lot of people, eat unhealthy things. And if I can help people to eat healthier, that would be, really fulfilling, I think.
You finally did it. You wore Mitch down.
Yeah. Thanks, Sarah.
That was good.
So being the wordsmith that you are, what are two of your, or three if you like, favorite stories that you've ever read, and why?
I think, okay, so one of them I have to say is Game of Thrones, because it's just like, it's just surprising at every turn, right? And it's written beautifully as well. It's incredible. I feel like that's too easy. Another one is And the Mountains Echoed. I don't know if any of you have read that, but it's like got these interweaving stories that come together, and it's just really like, it can be quite heart-wrenching in some ways, but I found that really moving. I really liked that book as well. How many did you want? Did you say 3? One of my favorites as a kid was The Magician. I absolutely loved The Magician, and I think that even more so than Lord of the Rings, that just, I don't know, it spurred something in me. I was like, oh, I love fantasy. I just, wanted to be absorbed in these fantasy settings. And yeah, I think that was probably my most inspirational book in terms of going down that route into like more, fantasy games and video games and books and just all that stuff, movies.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. My question for you, Sarah, is what did you really think of us blokes when you first met us?
What a question. I think so. The first thing I thought was, how welcoming is everyone? Like, and I think it's, it was the vibe of this whole podcast. That's what we're trying to aim for. So it's not surprising to me now. So that was the honest to goodness answer. But I guess, like, if I'm honest, I was also a little bit, not hesitant, but like, oh, am I going to be left out? It's like 8 blokes and me, and like, I guess I kind of felt nervous about that, about being the only woman, but then also it's good, right? Like we want some balance. Mitch is always talking about balance.
Yes.
So yeah, so I guess I was nervous in that degree. Yeah,
we did take a vote at the time, and it was 4-4 split about leave her out or include her. Like, yeah, and then we had to toss a coin, and we got welcoming. So
it was actually quite funny. Just to add on to that we required so much more of you than we did for all of us, because we'd actually had a bad experience prior to that. So we were like, can you send us like a little snippet of what you can do, thinking, oh, we don't want to have another bad experience. So then we're like, we all listened to it and went, oh, she's a bit too good for us.
Yeah. It's going to backfire on us.
Yeah, that like doing the whole audition tape was so nerve-wracking, and I'm like, these guys are so professional, they're making me do an audition.
And then you realized,
and then I met you all.
Yeah, you put all that effort in for nothing.
We saw the monkeys behind the curtain.
Yeah.
Let's
All
get the
right.
Patreon questions.
I can do the Patreon questions, I guess.
Yep.
All right. So, growing up, what children's TV shows, movies, characters were you obsessed with?
Oh man, I was obsessed with a couple of movies. One was Labyrinth. I used to watch that like daily. And another one was Drop Dead Fred.
Oh,
Anyone remember that movie?
Love that film.
Rick
And
Mail.
I love Rick Mail. He's hilarious. And then when I got older and I watched Rick Mail's like adult humor, I was like, oh my God, you know.
Lord
I
Flashheart.
was in that kid movie. Yeah, what other character? TV shows. I just just thought of this now, but there was a show, was it Puddle Lane? And they used to, I think Puddle Lane, they used to have like all these different kid shows, and I used to wait for that every day. It was like after school time, and there was just this way of introducing all these different TV shows, and one of them was Trapdoor. I loved Trapdoor. Don't you open that trapdoor? Yeah.
Love that.
Nice. The other one is, what is something you are most proud of with your creative writing?
I'm proud of what I've done so far with my novel, even though it has been on hiatus for basically since I started at the podcast. And you know what? Even if I never finish it, it's still got some cool ideas in there. And even like sometimes you just write a paragraph and you're like, this paragraph is awesome. Like I'm really proud of this. It can be something just so small like that. That I hope one day I will finish it. But yeah, I'm proud of what I've done so far.
Nice.
Awesome. All right. Next up in the hot seat is Magnanimous Mike.
Magnanimous Mike.
Magnanimous. I'm going to ask you to use it in a sentence again, Steve.
Mike is magnanimous.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah. What have you got, Mitch?
All right. Let me just open the sheet here. So, Mike, I'm going to set the scene for you.
All right.
You're on death row.
Thanks.
God.
It's the morning of your execution. You're ordering your last meal.
Oh.
What are you ordering?
My brain at the moment goes to like a Vietnamese like hot pot. Like I just want like all the meats and veggies and stuff you just dump in that thing. I just find that really soothing and like homey. It's something that Renato and I really love to enjoy together. It's just I like a range, you know what I mean? And when you have a hot pot, you have a bit of meat you put in, a bit of this, and then the soup sort of gathers all the flavors. And I think that would be something that like, you know, put me at ease as much as I can before we head in. So I reckon a good old hot pot.
Okay, cool.
If I'd known all the questions that had come before this, I probably wouldn't have asked this question, only that there's been a lot of sports questions. And this one is a sport question. It's just,
what?
Yeah. Have you ever been involved in any kind of sport, like team sport or solo sport?
My mum or parents? My mum pushed me to join a cricket team when I was younger.
Yeah, right.
So I actually was in a cricket team. And all I wanted to do was be one of the cool kids that rubbed the ball along the part of their thigh and get the little red mark.
On the ball.
And I remember I actually ended up being, I was a funny bowler because I'd either bowl amazingly or horribly and just way off. Like there was no in between. It would be like, whoa, where did that come from? Or how the hell do you bowl that badly? And the one other memory I have is the coach used to tell me off because I used to catch the ball like this with my palms connected and like trying to catch it at the tip of my fingers. But one day I caught a ball on the tip of my fingers and it was a 6. So just before I got out there, I caught it, tip of my fingers. I'm like, yeah, tell me I'm doing it wrong now. But that's the only time I was really I didn't want to do it. I didn't really like it. I didn't last that long in it.
Didn't want to do it.
No, I didn't want to do it. You know, getting all that sort of whites and the big thick, like, you know, like protective stuff when you're batting and the heat and nah, not my thing, which I should have done more, you know, looking back. But that's the only like sports thing I really got involved in when I was in school. And then shot put and discus. I was pretty good at that. I'm a big lad, so I got a bit of power behind me.
Momentum.
That's about it.
Fair enough.
All right, Mike, something that you actually enjoy. I've since we've been mates, I've been jealous of seeing all your travel memories come up on Facebook. So what's been one of your favorite memories of traveling?
So when I was in America, when I was heading to America, I realized that Jamaica was not far out of America. So I said to my travel agent, because I looked it up and I know it can be a pretty rough place, and they don't recommend really going by yourself or trying to go through the town by yourself because it can be pretty rough. And their big recommendation was to go to like an all-inclusive resort and hang out there. And I'm like, nah, that does not interest me at all. So I figured, I said, hey, get me on a cruise that goes to Jamaica. I've talked about having a lot of anxiety and stuff before. And when I used to have panic attacks, one of the things that used to help ground me a lot was Bob Marley. I've had a couple moments in my life where something really bad's happened or something's gone on. And the song Three Little Birds has somehow played in the background somewhere. And it's really like someone somewhere was telling me it's going to be okay. So I said, I want to hear that song in Jamaica. So when I was in America, I had got on a cruise. And when I was on the cruise, I was looking through what sort of expeditions you can do in Jamaica. And I got to go to Bob Marley's house.
Wow.
I
Awesome.
sat on his meditation rock. I listened to my song being sung by people in Bob Marley's house. I ate at his house, jerk chicken and stuff. And I think that experience will, I had a tear coming out my face, like listen to that song in that place just really hit home for me. And I think that will be something that'll stay with me forever. Yeah.
Great story.
Thank you.
Okay. Mine is a three-pronged question.
Oh,
I'm going to get in trouble from Mitch. Malteser Mike, three-pronged question. Were you born in Malta or
No.
here? Have you been back? And what's the thing you're most proud of your culture for?
So I've never been to Malta. Born and raised in Australia, never been, dying to go. With my travels, like America really drew me a lot. And so I chose to go there, and it was like, I'll go to Malta later. And right now I'm really hanging to go. But my way of, here we go, this is going to probably lead to some, some ammo in Mitch's gun. So one way of myself connecting to my culture is my grandfather for 30 years was a part of a Maltese band, and that's a marching band. And so when I was learning sax at school, I actually started trying to play sax with the band. That didn't really work out. But I started learning drums in high school, and I progressed really quickly, and I started learning professionally and stuff. And I said, well, why don't I play drums in the band? So I was a little drummer boy in the Maltese band for quite a few years. And because I was learning very advanced drums, I got like the some of the harder parts and solos and stuff, which made my grandfather very, very proud. And I because I got interested in marching bands, when I went to drum shows, I spoke to some of the American drummers about how to do backsticking when you flip the sticks as you play and play all the fancy stuff. So I taught myself a bit of that. So I used to be the guy in the Maltese marching band, flipping my sticks as I played and did all the crazy stuff. And like an uncle of mine came down from Malta and goes, I've never seen that before. And he went to Malta and was telling everyone, oh, my nephew, does all this cool stuff. And so I'd love to go there. So that's my like big proud thing that I've done for my culture. Being a part of that for many years, and they still try to get me back. And I always say I'll go back one day. But I would love to go to Malta and take part of one of the feasts there and play drums there. So yeah, that's a dream for me. So one day I'll get there, and one day I'll tell you what it's like having been there.
Mike, buddy.
I'm scared of your question.
No, mine's fluffy. It's fine. You get to design your very own amusement park. And I would like to know like what the theme would be, maybe one of the rides, what the food would be, what the music would be. Like what would your theme park be?
My own theme park, dude. That's interesting.
Yeah, I know you'd love that.
Yeah, that's really I don't know though. The theme would be something really light and fluffy, just making everyone happy. It wouldn't be like spooky or anything. Like my brain goes to making like a Universal, like characters everyone's loved growing up and things like that. The rides. I'd love a fantasy ride that really makes someone feel they're somewhere else. Like I always go back to, I went on the Avatar ride at Universal. I think, yeah, Universal. and it blew my mind. Oh, was it Disney World? I can't remember. I visited them very close together, but like I really felt like I was transported somewhere else. And I want a ride that does that for someone, really makes them feel they're in a different world and everything around them is crazy and foreign. I don't know what the theme exactly would be, but something. I want to like have some people do board games. I want the feeling more than the theme. You know what I mean? I want to provide that experience to someone and make them feel like they're really escaped and somewhere random. The music, I don't know. It would be, if it's my my theme park would be.
Would you get the marching band back again?
Yeah, it would be like marching band, like cool marching band
back
music
together.
/ swing music. I love my big band swing music, so it'd be a mix between those two things. Yeah.
Cool.
My question for you, Mike, I've changed it because it was super boring. If they made a movie about your life, who plays the role of Mike?
Jeez.
Ooh.
The first person that I thought that came to my mind was Gabriel Iglesias. If anyone knows that, like Fluffy, the comedian. Yeah. I don't know. He's the first person that came to my mind. If not him,
Brad Pitt.
Kevin Smith, I reckon. I would see Kevin Smith play me. Yeah. Talks a lot, big dude beard. Yep.
I would have said George Clooney, but
George Clooney.
Anyway.
Yeah, fair call. Fair call. I'm just being realistic though.
It's those eyes, those sparkly eyes.
Thanks, buddy. Only for you, Dan. Yeah.
Okay, Mike. If money wasn't an issue,
Mhm.
but you still had to work, what's the ideal job for you?
Ideal job for me. I'd definitely be selling. So I've always I've toyed about the idea. All right, let's mix two of my big passions together. I want to have like a huge, enormous store split into two things that sort of blend in the middle. So I want to have like a board game / pet shop, but in the middle of the pet shop, I want to have like a giant indoor playground, like that the dogs can come play on and people can interact, like with an indoor lagoon that the dogs can swim in. And I want to have like a pet section with all the pet games there as well, so all the people that love one or the other will sort of get tempted to buy them. And then like board game themed like shirts for dogs and stuff. I just want to mix those two things together, but I want it to be a place, like I want to have a cafe and a restaurant in there as well, because I want it to be a place that people will come with their dogs, tie them up next to them, put a cool bowl of food on there, order themselves some food and play board games with people. Like that's just heaven on earth to me. And I want a place that people can come and shop and do things, but they want to hang out the whole time.
Gee, you've even done the business plan.
That's it. That's it.
What about the chewed on box corners? That's
That's
what
fine.
I'm worried about.
Keep them up higher. Keep them up a bit higher.
When I win that
That'll be
20
right.
million, Mike, I'll give you a share. So you
Done. I like it.
Thank you, mate.
All right. So my question for you, Mike, we've seen a little bit of it on the podcast, but how did you get into beatboxing?
So my beatboxing started with my drumming, like I mentioned before. So I started with sax, and I did that at one high school, and I left that high school. And the other high school I went to didn't have as much money, and to rent a sax from a friend from there was really expensive. And I had a mum who was a single mum with me, and at that time, like a 4-year-old, 5-year-old. So money was hard. I said, okay, well, I won't do sax. I'll do something cheaper. I don't need to have a drum kit to play drums. I can buy 2 drumsticks and bang on a table. So I started learning drums. And at the same time, I discovered with my best friend a guy called Razel. If anyone hasn't heard Razel, look up Razel, Rahzel. I love that man. I've seen him nearly every time he's come to Australia. But he's the grandfather of noise, the beatbox champion. And he just blew my brain away with the sort of music he can make, sounding like it's 10 guys at once doing something. And for me, it was on my way home from school, I'd be like beatboxing the beats that I sort of would be playing during the day. And that was sort of like a way that I did it. And, I grew up in the western suburbs with some shady folks. And we used to be out in parks doing things we shouldn't be doing when we were 16, 17. And I knew a lot of rappers. So it started becoming like a big thing, like, oh, I'll drop a beat and I'll start freestyling over it. So, a bunch of kids drinking in the park, and, I'll be beatboxing, people start rap battling and stuff. And it's led to some interesting moments, like from I just got a random story. I went to a club once with some friends, and one of my friends got very drunk and went like just meeting random people. And I went outside to the smoking area, and she goes, Mike, these guys are freestylers. This guy's a beatboxer. You guys should do something. And I go, I'll drop us a beat. I go, no. It's like, I'm fine. I go, no, let's do a cipher. I'm like, okay. So I started beatboxing, and instantly this big circle like opened up in the crowd. And these guys just started freestyle battling. And this big dude pushed through, like, oh, what's he doing? He starts battle rapping them. Then another guy jumps and starts battle rapping them. This whole big thing just started happening. So beatboxing has taken me through some weird and wonderful places. I am not very good at it. I can do very basic stuff. There's a lot of amazing people out there that do some amazing things. If anyone's listening and is interested, watch a guy called The Pete Box and watch him do his version of Pink Panther. It gives me goosebumps every time I hear it. It's the most amazing thing ever. But yeah, but beatboxing was basically my way of practicing drums as I walked around and helping people freestyle rap.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That's me.
All right, down to the patrons.
Oh, yes. So we have, who is your favorite relatively unknown or like undiscovered comedian? And how did you come across them?
So a lot of my sort of small, it depends what you mean by comedian, because I love stand-up, but I also absolutely love improv. Anything to do with improv, I'm all over it. Some of my favorite improv comedians I found on a very famous podcast called Comedy Bang Bang. It's been going for many years. And some of my favorite people that are reoccurring on that, they come on as different characters and do all sorts of crazy stuff. There's Paul F. Tompkins, Lauren Lapkus, Jason Mantzoukas. He's in a bunch of TV shows and plays a scumbag usually. Like Reggie Watts, who's a beatboxing comedian. Check him out. There's a ton of them. So those are the sort of comedians that I will gravitate towards, people that can think on their feet really quickly, and can be funny with things that aren't always rehearsed. But I nightly, like my partner's grown to love it too. I listen to a Spotify playlist on shuffle of some of my favorite comedians just doing their bits, and that's like Patton Oswalt, John Mulaney. Oh goodness me, my brain's just going numb right now. There's a bunch of them. Dude, what's his name? Yeah, I'm on the spot, so I can't really think right now. But yeah, I've just got a playlist of comedians playing every single night the same jokes. I just find it soothing. I'm not waiting to hear the punchline. I know the jokes, but it just puts me at peace. So every single night I'm there listening to stand-up comedy.
That's awesome. And another question from our Patreons. Have you been in Melbourne all of your life? And what is your like recommendation of places to hang out in Melbourne?
I have lived in Melbourne all my life. I've never lived outside of Melbourne. I've toyed with the idea sometimes, but I'm not that brave. Just leaving all my family and friends behind into the unknown is very scary, and not being able to see people when I want to see them. Place to hang out. Like the first thing that comes to mind is Fortress in Melbourne, which is a big gaming place. Like anybody that loves board games or video games or anything, if you walk into that place, you will be in awe. It is amazing and huge in the Melbourne CBD. That's Fortress. I don't know. Other than that, like, I don't know. Like, I don't go out like that a whole lot these days. Like, I'm not a big bar guy. I don't really know. Like, Fortress is probably my main place. If I wanted to have like drink somewhere or hang out, that's where I'd probably go. A lot of the places that I used to love when I was younger have like closed down, but like there's a pool hall not far from me that I enjoy going once in a while called Double Deuce in Sunshine. It's a little pool hall, but they used to have an L-shaped pool table in there, which is a bit different. So I love myself a bit of pool. There used to be a pool hall that we used to go to literally 5 times a week when I was younger, and we used to have a good time there. But yeah, those are the sort of things I normally like. Give me some pool. And board games, and I'm a happy guy. I'm pretty happy to go wherever the company is, really. You know what I mean? Like as long as there's good people. Another happy place of mine in Melbourne is the Altona Dog Beach. that's another happy place for me. I like to take my dog to the dog beach and let her play in the water and just watch all the other dogs run around. That's a very happy place for me.
Lovely.
Nice.
Guys, we're there. We've got the final person to sit on this throne.
Best of
Mhm.
last.
Started with the youngest.
Yeah, finish with
and
the
the
oldest.
Wow, yeah, that's true.
Just so you know, I'll be answering all my questions in 4 parts.
They're all 6-part questions.
Start us off, Mitch.
I think Adrian wants to go first, Adi.
Yeah. Dan, who is your favorite screenwriter and
Aaron Sorkin.
who would play you in a movie?
Aaron Sorkin for me. I'm a Sorkin Dorkin.
Who is that?
Aaron Sorkin, he created The West Wing, and before that there was Sports Night. After The West Wing, there was Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip. Highly recommend all those shows. I've watched The West Wing probably from start to finish about 5 or 6 times over. Seasons 2 through 4 I watch just religiously. Like Mike, I was watch it to put it to sleep. One of my favorite movies of all time was A Few Good Men, and it was only after about, I don't know, 3 or 4 viewings that I realized it's an Aaron Sorkin film as well. So yeah, he's probably my favorite screenwriter, my favorite sort of writer for the screen. Who would play me in a film? John Cusack.
Nice.
Back when I had darker hair, back when I was less grey, I'd say John Cusack.
Cool.
Yeah, nice.
All right, Dan.
Mitch.
Which brand is your favorite walking frame? No, just kidding.
Zimmer.
If you were writing an autobiography, what would the title be and why?
Oh boy. What would the title be? I don't know. So maybe something like, because when you were talking before about sort of how you've sort of just fallen into things, I think I've fallen into a lot of my life as well, my job, my other things that have happened to me. So maybe something about having no direction, but I don't know, eternal optimism or something like that.
And Harris falling into life. I like that.
Yeah, I've sort of fallen ass backwards into a lot of sort of things.
That's a
including,
great title.
yeah, maybe just
Falling ass backwards.
Yeah, falling ass
Well,
backwards.
a lot of things.
I was going to say falling forward.
yeah, like, I can't complain about anything that's happened in my life. But a lot of it has been unintentional, or just I'm gonna go this way, and it sort of works out.
That's good. I thought it was going to be check out my parts.
Save that for the D&D campaign.
Before my question, Dan, just props to Aaron Sorkin. The Newsroom. Did you ever watch The Newsroom?
Oh yeah, love it.
Oh,
yeah.
the first scene in that series is like the best 10 minutes of TV you'll ever see.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Outstanding.
I loved. Yeah, I've seen that over and over again as well.
Yeah, I'm just showing my daughter at the moment. Like, it's so good. Anyway, my question is: when you were a dealer at the casino, not
a
croupier,
I got excited then.
So, what was the most amount of money you've seen someone lose in one sitting when you're at the dealer?
The most I've seen in a single sitting was $3 million. It was. I remember. Yeah, I know. So when I started off as a blackjack dealer, as you said, but I eventually started dealing other games as well. I dealt poker, roulette, and baccarat, and then I eventually moved into the upstairs, the mahogany room, and then I was coded. And it was mainly baccarat up there, but then I was coded to deal up in the salons, which is right up in the top tower. There are, aside from the main sort of VIP room, there are private rooms, which is just an international player comes along and they have their suite, and they also have a private room set up for them. And sometimes we would sit in that room all day for an entire shift and they wouldn't show up. But we have to have the room ready in case they decide to play. There was a player, and I'm not going to mention the name because I don't remember the name, but I do remember it was about 10 o'clock in the morning and he was on his way to play golf, but he had some time to kill. And so he came, he played baccarat, He was cool, calm, and collected. The table maximum, I think, was 300,000. And in the space of about 15, 20 minutes, he lost $3 million. He stood up and said, thanks very much. Yeah, thanks, guys. I'm going to play golf. And it was like it meant nothing to him. And we all just looked at each other and just went. And it's funny because that was around the time where I was just started, saving for a house and things like that. And every bet is like, well, that's a mortgage. And that's a mortgage.
Man.
Yeah. And
That's
the funny thing is, and sometimes it's a sad thing too, you just become numb to it.
Yeah.
It's just nothing. I've seen, would see that regularly. But that was one of the first times where I saw a significant amount of money get lost and was gobsmacked.
Yeah. Wow.
That's
I was not expecting a 7-figure answer to that question.
No.
Wow.
Wow. Cool. So my question for you, Dan, was apart from playing board games, what sort of activity are you most looking to doing with your boys once they're old enough? Like, what's something you're just looking forward to doing with your family once your boys are older?
Well, we started playing PlayStation a little bit with Jack. We play the Lego Marvel games, and it's seen that dexterity because that was me growing up. So a lot of it's me not pushing things onto him, but he sees what I do and he wants to do it too. So it's great that he does that. But it's funny because just in the last week or two, he's been doing homeschooling, and one of the things they've been doing is writing stories. And he started doing writing, he started doing drawings and things, and I'd really like to do that with him. Maybe if we can write some stories together, if we can draw some pictures and because when I was little, and I think it was my mum that was encouraging me, I used to actually make little stories and do the front cover and staple it down the side and make a little story. I'd love to be able to do that with him, but also encourage him with his creativity because he's got a really, really good little imagination. He's been writing stories about dragons and stories about dinosaurs, and I'd like to try and foster that, but also maybe find a way that we can do it together. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Very good. So, Dan, we've touched on your writing exploits previously, but if you could pick the brains of any author, dead or alive, who would you pick? And what would be your burning questions to ask?
Wow, great question. I can't say Tolkien because you stole that one.
You can still say Tolkien.
Connor's at dinner with him.
Yeah.
Never talked to him about writing.
What about dessert?
And I would have been like this the whole time.
I don't know. See, some of my favorite authors are not necessarily the authors that I would want to write about, because one of the things that I really, when I write, I think very visually. I think in very movie-esque and big sort of plot things. But I'd really like to be able to talk to an author about the finer details. So maybe someone like a Hemingway or Steinbeck, for instance, something that's a lot more. They're like Steinbeck's stories are all sort of sweeping dramas, but he really sort of brings the focus down into the really small details, which is something that I'm only learning or trying to do, because everything I write, I'm thinking in terms of like big blockbuster movies, and I'm just trying to get to the next action scene or get to the next plot point. And I'm not very good at sort of just taking a breath and describing, like someone mentioned jokes about, I can't remember who the author was, who describes how the leaves sound when they crunch under the foot, and they sort of bring it a little bit too down into the micro. But that's probably maybe those are probably two authors. And even though I'm not looking at writing those sort of dramas, but I do admire their style of bringing things down from like, okay, they're writing a sweeping saga, but then bringing it down into the micro. I think.
Oh,
thanks, Conor.
Okay, so it's me. Dan, do you have any weird pet hates?
Oh,
cats.
Mitch.
That's not weird.
Yeah, good point.
Pet hates.
Sorry, Mitch.
I just thought Dan needed more time. I thought,
yeah,
run some
You sacrificed yourself.
interference for him. Yeah.
I don't have pet hates per se, but I've had flatmates, roommates in the past where I don't understand why you're putting a spoon in the sink when the dishwasher is right there, or when you're balancing a knife on the edge of the sink so that you can come back to it later, but that doesn't explain why there's actually 4 knives all balancing on the edge of the sink. And maybe they're pet hates because it's just it's a bit of my OCD.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know that I have pet hates per se. Yeah, sorry, I don't have a really sort of zinger answer for that one.
No trolleys, like when you see a trolley left in someone's front yard or something.
Yeah.
That's me.
No, I
I'm
live in the
projecting.
western suburbs. It's common.
That's very specific.
I like when someone walks slowly in the left-hand line of an escalator, or
Yeah.
I'm a fast walker anyway.
Yeah.
So, and one thing that really gets my goat is
Here we go.
Now you're warming up, Dan. Let's go.
It's at Christmas time in the shopping centers, because I normally go with a list, and it's normally, and not that I leave it to the last minute, but I might leave it to the last week or the second last week before Christmas. And I've got a list of who I want to buy for and what I want to buy, because I've been looking online, I've been looking at catalogs or whatever. So it's when people are just stopping and just wandering around, looking around. And it's like, come on, I got somewhere to be, I got places, people to do. Just get out of the way.
That with your parts?
Places to be, people to do. But it's like, but even if it is like Christmas Eve and now you decide to just window shop, get out of my way. I've got things to do. Maybe I'm a little impatient when it comes to that sort of stuff. Yep.
Yeah, I feel you, Dan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's an old age thing.
Maybe.
It does take you both a long time to get anywhere with this, I'm afraid. So
I'm just thinking, picturing that old man yells at cloud.
Window choppers.
Get off my lawn.
Def.
So Dan, if you could go back in time and make a different choice in your life about something, what would that be? Preferably don't throw someone under the bus.
No,
Take a knife to the shops
probably-
at Christmas last year.
Oh dear.
Yeah, okay, I've got one. I've got one. So I went when I was in year 12. I had this English teacher who was super supportive of me. She let me do sort of a few little creative writing projects that were sort of outside of, like, maybe like, okay, that here's your assignment, here's your essay. And I kind of found a way to bend the rule and maybe make it a bit more creative, a bit more sort of crazy. Like an example was that a mate and I had to do, it was about doing reviews, and so we had to do a film review. And so a mate and I, we decided to do our film review in the style of Graham and the Colonel from the Late Show. And it was basically just jokes and stuff, but she actually enjoyed it so much that she made us do it again for the whole class, sort of thing, rather than us just doing it, presenting it to her. And so I really had a lot of respect for her, and she encouraged me to really write. And I think there's a few things that I'd written where she submitted it to local things. And then there was right at the end of high school, there was at my exams, which I completely froze up on. I had an A and an A+ for my 2 assignments, then I got a D and a D+ for my two exams, basically. And I always felt like I sort of failed her a little bit. And then also there was a short story writing thing that she asked me that you should enter this. And I left the last minute, and then I really couldn't think of anything. And I remembered hearing a story about that someone had told me. And so I tried to rewrite that and put my own sort of spin on it. And when I presented it, she just went, "I've heard that story before. That's a Paul Jennings story." And I didn't know. All I knew was I'd heard a story, and it was almost, and I sort of justified it. It's like, well, it's like people hear folk tales all the time and basically, put their own spin on a folk tale. And I didn't really probably do enough of it. I probably thought I was better than I was in terms of, I can take a story and put my own little spin on it, make it my own. It certainly wasn't enough that she didn't recognize it. And she goes, "Well, that's basically so-and-so." And again, I felt like I'd probably let her down. And just the fact that I'm bringing it up 30 years later, it's obviously something in the back of my mind that's always been there. So yeah, that's probably something that I would change, and I probably would have applied myself a little bit more in high school, because I was a straight A student. I was the nerd, right from 7 right through to year 11. I got the English academic awards, English awards, and math awards every year. And then in year 12, I was voted school captain. There was 4 of us, but I was one of the school captains. And so suddenly I was in this weird social space that I'd never really been in before, and getting invited to parties, and and my grades slipped as a result. And things started to sort of happen after that, in terms of I wanted to be a journalist, didn't get into journalism because my grades weren't good enough. And so I could probably take it all. But a lot of people say they didn't like high school and stuff. I loved high school. Probably loved it a little bit too much in the end, and my grades slipped. So that's what I would change, Steph.
Awesome, thank you.
All right. I feel like I've had a lot of the light-hearted questions, but this is hopefully it's light-hearted. So Dan, before the war, what was your favorite pastime as a kid?
I used to have a stick and hoop.
Stick and hoop.
Stick and a hoop.
He had this toy went like this.
Thanks, Jules.
Oh, that's so mean.
What war though? Maybe he was talking about the Iraqi war or something.
Yeah,
The Gulf
Should I
War.
clarify which war?
Yeah. Is it the war you and I are going to have after the show?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That'd be a cup and ball hog, Dan.
I don't mind being the old man of the podcast.
I'm glad that I missed out on all this by like 60 days.
Yeah. How long?
It's so unfair.
So good.
So you're gonna answer? What was something you enjoyed to play with as a kid?
What was your favorite pastime as a kid?
Pastime.
Last time. It's funny because it probably was board games.
Yeah.
Until we got our first computer was in. Our first computer was a Commodore VIC-20 that we got for Christmas. So outside of riding BMXs, and we're lucky because we actually lived right behind a reserve that had 2 football ovals, a soccer oval, and tennis courts. And so we used to ride our BMXs all day, every day. Right next to our house was a lane that went into the reserve. And my brother and I were always going around riding BMXs and getting exercise. And then the Commodore VIC-20 happened, and that was my sort of foray into computer games. And I remember the next Christmas I asked for some games, and Mum bought me a book, which was programming in BASIC. That you had to write it all out.
Make your own games.
And had to save it to cassette tape. So this is now it's showing my age. Had to save it to cassette tape. We had to keep an exercise book, and write what the game was, and then the number on the counter, so that if you wanted to pick a game, like because the cassette tape could hold maybe sort of 30, 40 games, and you had to fast forward, you had to reset, you had to rewind the way to the start, reset the counter, and then fast forward to whatever the number was in the book, so that you could actually load that game up. So there's one for all you young'uns out there.
Never heard a stick and hoop sound so good.
Yeah. But then that was my foray into adventure games as well, because that was like those old games where you go north, south, east, west, and explore. Yeah, that was probably it. And then eventually comics came along and stuff.
Nice.
All right.
So Patreon questions. I had the same question asked of me. What is a creative writing project that you're most proud of?
This one he did for his high school teacher, where he had to get it in at the
Yeah.
last minute.
So it was a bit Paul Jenningsy, I heard.
Yeah. Okay, I've got 2. One was for my niece. So my niece is special needs, and so I made her, and it really was just an ABC book, but I published it. Also published it. I bound it. I put all the pictures in there, one for each letter of the alphabet, and it was all different things that related to her in terms of her mum, her dad, and all that sort of stuff. Even though it was just simple like letters, the alphabet, I put a lot of effort in that, and I was really proud of that. Another creative project, creative writing. Oh, our vows.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, Jen and I, for the most part, but she helped. We wrote our vows together, and they were kind of they were kind of reciprocated, but there was a slight twist on them because we put some jokes in. And so it's actually in our vows that I'm her player 1 and she's my player 2, and vice versa. And probably to go with that as well was my my groom speech, because I put a lot of work into that too, and that to me was like the closest thing I'll ever do to delivering a stand-up comedy routine. I had him rolling in the aisles, and I actually just watched it again just a couple of weeks ago. I found it on DVD, and I crushed it. It's
cool.
really funny.
Nice. Did you get your vows and your speech, like the papyrus you wrote that on? Did you get that framed?
No. I chiseled it in stone.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Papyrus.
Oh dear.
Oh, it's too late in the evening for this.
Yeah.
We've lost him. Okay, so
dear.
the second question is, so it's again along this similar line to what you've been asked before, but if you could collaborate with another author, like on one project, who would the author be and what would that project be?
Matthew Riley. He's probably one of my favorite authors. Well, no, he would be my favorite author. What would we collaborate on? Some sort of I've always thought about trying to revisit some like some stories from Australian history, but putting an action spin on it. And whether that's maybe just taking some liberties and making it more action packed than those events actually were, but trying to create some sort of like not the Great Australian Novel, but some sort of great Australian adventures. And putting a bit of an Aussie spin. And he's one of my favorite authors in terms of action. I remember when I first started reading his books, the biggest thing that got me was the fact that he was only like a year younger than me, and he was writing these best-selling, and I'm like, this bastard's doing exactly what I wish I was doing, and he's a year younger than me, and he's Australian, he's from Sydney, and having said that, I've had the privilege of actually meeting him a few times in Bookstone, having conversations with him, and in fact, Jen and I have met him together a few times. He even sent a telegram to our wedding.
Oh wow,
Cool.
Yeah. So yeah, I'd collaborate with him in a heartbeat and put a spin on some sort of Australian sort of adventure, some action story or something. I think that'd be awesome.
that's cool.
They used telegrams in the war, didn't they?
Mm.
Yeah. I was about to say, you leave yourself open mentioning Telegram.
Well, I know.
Well, there you go. That is the end of the questions. So that was, just did some quick math. That was 99 questions, 11 per person. So no,
90,
actually,
I
no,
think.
90, because 10. Sorry, you didn't ask the questions for ourselves. 90 questions. There you go. So big thank you to all of the people who are still following us live on our.
Yeah, you guys are
Wow.
crazy.
Yeah,
Crazy
well done.
people.
You're the
But,
best.
yeah, look, this episode was designed to kind of be somewhat of a starting point for our podcast for those people who listen to us regularly, and you ever have talked to someone else about us, you can say, hey, you should go back and listen to this. You'll find out about all the people on the podcast. And I mean, yeah, it's probably going to go for 4 hours, but hopefully it's 4 interesting hours and they can skip through if they need to. But big thanks to everyone, as I said at the start, who supports our show, but a massive thanks to these other wonderful 8 individuals that we get to do this with every week. And I learned so much more about all of you tonight. So that was awesome.
Yeah, same here.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for sharing.
It's
Thank
fun.
you.
And if you're watching the video, yes, Adrian had to go to bed. He started work at 4 o'clock on Friday morning.
to bed.
And he has to start work in just under 4 hours from now. So,
Oh wow!
Poor bugger needed some sleep.
I sent a message before, like, "Hey man, you okay? You coming back?"
he'll respond in the
Adrian.
morning.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's solid effort. But thank you very much, and we'll end it up there. And let's hope the next game that you play is a sizzling one. Cheers.
Cheers.
See ya.
All right.
Bye.